What's up guys, this is your favorite fanfic YouTuber, the Fanfic Majesty, and welcome to another amazing video. You can follow me on Patreon for exclusive stories. 6HT Chapter 101 Lava Lava Fruit rewards the Sun Fruit 10,000 times. Chapter 101 Killing Sakazuki. Since Ye Huo asked Sakazuki to kneel down, there was absolutely no reason to keep him. Let me ask, who clearly has the opportunity to kill a potential threat? But you still want to let him go? He had offended Sakazuki to death. If you let him go, he will never have peace in the pirate world. Therefore, Sakazuki must die. The 1,000-meter-long half-moon-shaped sword slashed towards Sakazuki's head in an instant. At that moment, strong lights suddenly shot over. Ye Huo's sword slashed in the middle. The power of the sword was weakened a lot, but it still cut through countless bright lights and hit Sakazuki's head. Sakazuki was obviously well prepared. His body has already turned into magma. His head instantly turned into lava. The magma has been cut away. A sharp roar came from Sakazuki's mouth. The magma gathered and Sakazuki's head grew back. Although he was not dead, he had a very eye-catching huge sword mark. Sakazuki turned around and ran away. Ye Huo looked into the distance. There, Kizaru had his hands in his trouser pockets and his expression was more solemn than ever. Marines all around raised their guns. Bang bang bang. Gunshots rang out. Ye Huo's voice disappeared instantly and appeared behind Sakazuki the next moment. The sword slashed at Sakazuki. At the same time, light gathered around Ye Huo, and he kicked Ye Huo's sword slash with one foot. Ye Huo responded with a punch. The space shattered, Kizaru's body flew out, and blood spilled from the corner of his mouth. Ye Huo, it's really scary. Kizaru can responsibly say that he is not acting this time. Whoosh whoosh. Kong arrived at this time and punched Ye Huo in the back. Ye Huo Rinnegan released strong power, and the truth-seeking ball appeared behind him, condensing into a black wall. Kong's punch hit the defensive wall formed by the truth-seeking ball. Ye Huo's sword pierced Sakazuki's heart. The defense gathered by the truth-seeking ball trembled suddenly and made a huge roar. Sakazuki screamed from ahead. A black hole appeared in Ye Huo's left hand, and the black hole released powerful suction. Ye Huo punched out, and the black hole immediately hit Sakazuki's body. At that moment, Sakazuki's lava lava fruit lost its effect. At the same time, Ye Mie's long sword moved upward. Sakazuki was unable to elementalize, and his body was cut in half. Red blood suddenly spurted out. Ye Huo was splashed all over. Ye Huo was covered in blood and looked like a human Shira. Ye Huo swung his sword and shook off the bloodline on the sword. At the same time, the black hole fruit keeps absorbing. He actually sucked the lava lava fruit out of Sakazuki's body. Ding! Congratulations to host for getting lava lava fruit. 1,000 times reward is triggered. 1. 10,000 lava lava fruit. 2. A fruit of the sun. I choose the fruit of the sun. Ye Huo's voice sounded, and 10,000 lava lava fruit were stored in the system. Now he is out of world government, then you must accumulate your own strength. He plans to distribute these 10,000 lava lava fruit to his future subordinates. Ye Huo took out a lava lava fruit. Then swallow. The black hole fruit increased 10,000 times, allowing his body to accommodate 10,000 different fruits. Ye Huo. Seeing Ye Huo kill Sakazuki, Kong was extremely angry. He shouted at Garp and Sengoku in the distance, Garp, you are the hero of Marine. Sengoku, you are still Marshal of Marine. This Marine traitor, you killed Sakazuki, and you still don't come to help. Garp picked his nostrils and couldn't choose to go. Sengoku coughed violently and said slowly, Commander, I was seriously injured in the battle. I have been working hard recently and I really don't have much strength left. Commander, you set up this situation without notifying us in advance. You must have a complete plan, so we won't go over and cause trouble for you. At the end of the sentence, Sengoku didn't forget to pull Garp, who was on the back foot, and said, Garp, don't you think so? Garp nodded while picking his nostrils. Kong turned livid with anger and shouted, This is an order. If you still admit that you are Marine and want to be worthy of the word justice behind you, then come up. Garp was still picking his nose and looking at the blue sky, unmoved. Sengoku sighed secretly upon hearing this. I secretly said in my heart. Yes, Summit War just finished its performance. Close black lens bracket. Now we have to put on a show. Close black lens bracket, open black lens bracket. When can I stop acting? Close black lens bracket. Asking for flowers. Garp stopped picking his nose. Open black lens bracket. Sengoku went to perform. Close black lens bracket, open black lens bracket. Then it would be hard for me to stop acting. Close black lens bracket. Thinking of this, Garp roared, Ye Huo boy, let me see how far armament hockey has been. Garp rushed towards Ye Huo aggressively. His fists were clenched, and a very light layer of armament hockey appeared on the surface. Under Ye Huo's perception, this layer of hockey is really too weak. Ye Huo knew that the veteran cadre was acting again. Ye Huo also helped him and roared, Garp, Lousy has wanted to kill you for a long time, just take a punch from me. In that moment, the two fists immediately collided. However, Ye Huo hadn't even touched Garp yet. Garp exerted force on his own feet and crushed the ground beneath his feet, forming a large crater with a radius of several hundred meters. Point zero. Immediately afterwards, Garp's body was shot backwards, and he shouted, "Ah, Ye Huo, what a terrifying punch, I am no match for him." Boom! Garp crashed into the collapsed mountain in the distance. Countless rocks fell down and buried Garp inside. Marine hurriedly stepped forward and pulled away the rock. It was already more than 10 minutes before they were completely opened. They were extremely worried about whether Garp was still alive. And what's even more surprising is, Ye Huo looked sideways and saw Kong's face as dark as the bottom of a pot. However, Marine the resourceful general is Marine the resourceful general after all. This Garp's performance is really too exaggerated. It's hard for him to act in this play. Sengoku's mouth twitched. Kong suddenly looked at Sengoku and said, "Sengoku, if you don't take me seriously, I won't approve your resignation." Then he yelled, "Ye Huo, if you kill Akainu, I will definitely kill you." It was obvious that Garp was letting go. Countless golden lights converged towards the palm, and the next moment, a terrifying shockwave shot straight towards Ye Huozen. But he couldn't do anything about Garp, and Garp didn't care at all what Kong thought. Garp was sleeping soundly inside, making a deafening snoring sound. Kong is targeting him. Who can this fool? At this time, Ye Huo's mouth twitched. He secretly cursed Garp as a chicken thief. Sengoku transforms into the form of a giant Buddha. Marine was stunned. Chapter 102, Moonwalk's 10,000-fold reward, unlimited moonwalk. Ye Huo easily avoided the terrifying attack on the island. The island trembled violently, rocks flew, and dust flew. There was dust everywhere, obscuring all sight. Then another scream came. "Oh, Ye Huo, you are so despicable, you actually attacked me." Boom! Sengoku immediately exited the form of the Buddha, like a cannonball fired into another large mountain minister. Sengoku's plan is simple. The huge impact formed dust that blocked the view. Then he was quickly beaten to complete the acting. The plan was a success. Countless rocks fell down. Cover up Sengoku's body. Sengoku's lips curved into a smile. Is the name the resourceful general actually called for nothing? Just rely on my acting skills. It's a long way to go to get rid of that reckless man Garp. At this time, the corner of Ye Huo's mouth twitched. He didn't even do anything, did he? However, Ye Huo still felt a warmth in his heart. Garp and 67, Sengoku, his former boss, treated him very well. I have been at Marine for so many years. After all, I made a few friends. Sengoku, Garp. A roar came from Kong's mouth. At this moment, he hated it to the extreme. Neither of these two old bastards can be relied upon at the critical moment. Ye Huo turned his attention to Kong. The smile disappeared and murderous intent emerged. Kong's expression changed, and he used Moonwalk again, avoiding Ye Huo's lock. Ye Huo urged Rinnegan to continuously analyze Kong's Moonwalk. Moonwalk uses strong foot power to step on the air and move on the air. To be able to practice Moonwalk, both skill and strength are indispensable. Ye Huo's power is definitely enough. The only difference lies in the skills. Rinnegan turned rapidly, analyzing and analyzing. Kong's speed is too fast, which makes the analysis more difficult, so Ye Huo has not been able to fully analyze it until now. Ultra-clear observation Haki can not only sense the surrounding environment. You can also feel your own physical condition. Ye Huo began to adjust the muscles of his feet. Meets Moonwalk requirements. At that moment, Ye Huo jumped high, then exerted force with his right leg, and stared into the air with the sole of his foot. A reaction force came. Ye Huo walked through the air, performed Moonwalk, and instantly flew 100 meters away. Almost at the same time, the system sound sounded. Ding! Congratulations to the host for learning Moonwalk. Thousands of rewards to inspire one. Infinite Moonwalk. Take 10,000 steps at a time, 100 meters per step. 2. Ultra Distance Moonwalk. 1 step at a time, 1 million meters per step. Ye Huo is curious about taking 10,000 steps at a time. How can you take 10,000 steps at a time? But he quickly threw away this curiosity. Because Kong was coming towards him. I choose Infinite Moonwalk. At that moment, Ye Huo felt a strange energy filling his feet. His feet became more graceful and slender than before. The lines of the muscles have also reached an extremely perfect level. At that moment, Ye Huo took another flying step, and his figure disappeared from the place instantly. Appeared behind Kong. Kong's powerful observation Haki sensed Ye Huo, quickly turned around, and punched through Ye Huo's body. But Kong didn't feel like he was hitting the mark. Kong looked at the fire in front of him in surprise. Then the figure of Ye Huo in front of him gradually faded. Finally disappeared. This turned out to be just a shadow. Kong, where are you going to hit? Suddenly, Ye Huo's voice sounded from all directions. Kong looked up and saw in all directions, there were countless Ye Huo in the sky and on the earth. Kong's expression changed. Is this a ghost image? When people look at objects with their eyes, the image of the object stays in the eyes for a period of time. This time is extremely short. The formation of ghosting is simple, that is, the speed reaches ultimate. In this very short period of time, your figure changes 6 positions and stays briefly, so you can see 6 ghost images. If you practice moonwalk to its ultimate state, you can form 3, 4, or even a dozen ghost images. But so much ghosting, a deep fear arose in Kong's heart. At the same time, an extreme sense of danger surged into my heart. Kong unleashed all his strength at that moment. A black armament hockey appears on the surface of Kong's body. The stream of light shines all over the body. Dang dang dang. Countless slashes hit the surface of Kong's body in an instant. Kong's armament hockey was slashed with sword marks. Finally, Kong couldn't hold on any longer, and one of his arms was cut off by Ye Huo. At this moment, Sengoku's voice came, "Ye Huo, for the sake of our many years of friendship, let him go." Sengoku arrived below at some point. At that moment, the Ye Huo in the sky gradually faded, and only one person stopped in the air. He just stood there in midair. When Sengoku saw this, the corner of his mouth twitched. Moving in the air, it's much harder to stop there. It seems to be stationary, but in fact it is constantly moving. However, he cannot sense that Ye Huo is moving based on what he sees and hears. Such physical skills are really terrifying to the extreme. Ye Huo glanced at Sengoku for the last time, without saying anything, and his figure flashed and disappeared. Kong's figure fell from midair. Sengoku didn't pick it up and let him hit the ground. Kong covered his left arm, enduring the severe pain, and looked at Sengoku angrily. "Sengoku, why didn't you try your best and why did you let him go?" Sengoku glanced at Kong and said calmly, "Commander-in-Chief, I saved you just now. Should you express your gratitude?" Kong took a deep look at Sengoku, and left angrily without saying a word of thanks. Sengoku pouted, "What an ungrateful old guy." Same day. A piece of news that shocked the world came from Naval Headquarters. Marine Headquarters Vice Admiral Ye Huo colluded with pirates to defect. Marine Admiral Sakazuki fought to the death while chasing Ye Huo and was injured and retired. He resigned from the position of Marine Admiral. In order to commend Sakazuki for his bravery in this battle, he was named a new generation of Marine heroes. At the same time, Marine issued a reward of 10 billion belly to hunt down Marine traitor Ye Huo. The media who got the news were shocked. In almost half a month, all the media worked overtime to produce press releases and release news, all about Marine Admiral's retirement and Ye Huo's defection. Newspapers were brought to the New World one by Newsbird and spread all over the world. Within the 4 seas, countless Marines, pirates, swordsmen, great swordsmen, bounty hunters, poison masters, fishmen, giants, etc. all saw the latest newspapers and looked at the 1.4 front page headlines. That big avatar. A young man with messy hair like a chicken coop. His face was covered with black stubble, which made him look very slovenly. Many people have heard of Ye Huo but have never seen it. At this time, everyone couldn't help but have doubts. Is this really the legendary Marine Vice Admiral? Is it really because he seriously injured Marine Admiral Sakazuki that he retired? 10 billion belly, ha ha ha, if I kill him, I can become the richest man in the world, ha ha. In a tavern in New World, some people were laughing and talking. An old man with straight silver hair, eyes, and a straight scar on his right eye shook his head and said slowly, "It seems that Sakazuki is dead. What a terrifying man." At this moment, a man with messy hair and black stubble came over, sat directly opposite the old man and shouted, "Old man, can you buy me a drink?" Chapter 103 Conquering Rayleigh. Conquering Pluton requires using more powerful force. "Boss, serve the wine." The old man smiled slightly. However, the boss was stunned at this time. The next moment, he looked at Ye Huo and then at the profile picture in the newspaper. He looked at Ye Huo again, and then at the profile picture in the newspaper. "Isn't this guy in front of me Ye Huo, the wanted criminal for whom Marine has a bounty of 10 billion baileys?" The boss's heart was beating wildly, his blood was rising, and he was extremely nervous. He waved his hand and asked the waiter to notify Marine, while he came to Ye Huo with a bottle of wine. The boss's hands kept shaking. The bottles clinked softly on the tray. The boss's legs softened and he accidentally fell to the ground. Ye Huo blocked the boss with the back of his sword, took action instantly, and took the wine. It would be a pity to drop such a good wine. "Pluton, don't you think so?" Ye Huo smiled and looked at the old man opposite. The old man is the famous pirate, Pluton Rayleigh. Rayleigh narrowed her eyes slightly, stared at Ye and said, "I'm curious how you found me." "This is not important. 12. Ye Huo poured himself a glass of wine carelessly, and poured another glass for Rayleigh. Rayleigh looked at the wine glass, drank it down without any hesitation, and then looked at Ye Huo. A smile appeared on Ye Huo's face. He drank the wine in his glass and laughed loudly. "Good wine, really happy, ha ha ha." Rayleigh put down the glass and said, "Are you here to see me?" Ye Huo put down his glass, looked at Rayleigh, and said loudly, "I want to overthrow the world government and kill the celestial dragons, but I can't do it alone. I need help. Rayleigh, come and help me." As soon as Ye Huo said this, the whole tavern instantly became quiet. The next moment, all the guests were crawling and peeing and running away. This guy is crazy. He actually said he wanted to overthrow the world government and kill the celestial dragons. Crazy, absolutely crazy. Pluton Rayleigh looked at Ye Huo in shock. He didn't expect that this Ye Huo would be so arrogant, bold, and even stupid. He actually said in such a public place that he would overthrow the world government and kill the celestial dragons. Is he looking for death? However, Ye Huo is still smiling. Not a shred of fear. That solid gaze, and that strong self-confidence. From the inside out, there is an extremely strong Hokage in his body. That is Hokage who belongs to the king, another madman. A madman crazier than Roger. Rayleigh shook her head and said slowly, I'm old and it's no longer suitable for me to mess around. Today's world is your young world. You'd better find someone else. I think the extremely evil generation is a good choice. Ye Huo smiled and said, they are all too immature and too weak. Rayleigh, I am looking for you because I think highly of you. I hope you will not be toasted or punished with alcohol. As soon as Ye Huo said these words, a cold light flashed in Rayleigh's eyes and a murderous intent emerged. Even though Ye Huo is powerful and famous, and even Marine offers a bounty of 10 billion belly, Rayleigh is not afraid. Rayleigh said coldly, what if I refuse? Ye Huo raised the corner of his mouth and smiled proudly, then, I'll beat you until you agree. At that moment, Rayleigh suddenly took action. A sword light suddenly appeared, cutting off the table in front of him and slashing at Ye Huo's neck. Ye Huo didn't move, but the sword stopped 3 inches in front of Ye Huo's neck and could no longer cut. Ye Huo's eyes turned into Rinnegan at some point. Near the neck, purple-black energy condensed into a bone. It is the power of Susanoo. Rayleigh's pupils shrank. Is this the legendary ability of Yan Yanli? As soon as Rayleigh had this idea, Ye Huo formed a big hand and swatted at Rayleigh with lightning speed. Rayleigh's expression changed, and he instantly used armament Hokage to attach his arms to block Ye Huo's left palm with his sword. Boom! With a dull sound, Rayleigh was blown away and smashed through Xiaomu's wall. Ye Huo also stood up. Shutuo's energy increased rapidly, condensing into a small Zuzo that was 20 meters high. With a wave of his hand, he smashed open the house. Ye Huo strode forward and stepped onto the stone street, making a huge roar. Countless ordinary people screamed and scattered. A group of Marines heard the sound and ran towards this side. Ye Huo seemed not to notice, waved his big hand and continued to hit Rayleigh. Rayleigh's figure flashed quickly and ran towards the distant sea. Ye Huo withdrew Shu Zuo's power. He kicked the ground violently, and his figure shot out instantly. Rayleigh and Ye Huo arrived at the beach in a blink of an eye. Rayleigh jumped into the sea and disappeared. He didn't want to waste time and energy with Ye Huo. He has more important things to do. People with abilities are afraid of the sea, but he wants to see how Ye Huo chases him. Rayleigh opened the observation Hokage and saw a figure walking through the air. $50. The speed reached ultimate, and it was in front of him in a blink of an eye. Moonwalk. So fast. Rayleigh was startled, and then he plunged into the bottom of the sea. Swim towards Nine Snake Island. Ye Huo smiled when he saw this. The super hard armament Hokage condenses on the right hand and is attached to the shuriken. Purple-black light shines, and strange energy fluctuates. Ye Huo took a deep breath, and a ball of white light appeared again on the tip of the sword. Ye Huo used all the power of super hard armament Hokage, sword slash, and formation fruit. At this moment, Ye Huo struck the sea with a sword. 1,000-meter-long sword slash suddenly cut into the sea. Wherever the sword slashed, the space was shattered everywhere. A huge trench that was tens of thousands of meters long and hundreds of meters wide appeared. There is no trace of seawater in the trench. Rayleigh's body is also revealed. Rayleigh's eyes were filled with shock. Is this still a power that humans can exert? What kind of terrifying monster is this? Ye Huo raised his sword high again. With this sword, observation Hokage has locked onto Rayleigh. Chapter 104. A man as powerful as a god. Rayleigh panicked, but the sword was still hit. He was dead. Finally, Rayleigh shouted, okay, I'm willing to follow you. However, Ye Huo still cut him down with this sword. The terrifying purple-black half-moon-shaped sword slashed past Rayleigh's ear. Chance of silver hair falling. Rayleigh's pupils shrank to the extreme. Cold sweat continued to pour down from his forehead. One by one they fell to the ground. His eyes moved slightly and he looked to the right. An extremely terrifying crack stretched out across the ground for tens of thousands of meters. Rayleigh swallowed his saliva. He was almost, just almost, killed by this sword. At this time, Ye Huo's voice sounded, I'm sorry, I couldn't control it for a moment. Rayleigh, are you okay? No, it's okay. Rayleigh swallowed again and looked at Ye Huo with eyes full of disbelief. You just said you were willing to follow me, right? Ye Huo smiled, and his sword strike was intentional. The strong must use strength to conquer. Yes, from today on, you are my captain, Rayleigh said solemnly. Ye Huo touched his chin, thought for a while and said, the word captain is not a good word. It sounds trivial. In this way, you can call me leader from now on. Let's go to Dressrosa. Originally, Rayleigh was very optimistic about Luffy and felt that Luffy could become the pirate king of the new world. But now, he has someone more worthy of following him. Rayleigh found a boat. He and Ye Huo sat on such a small boat and headed to Dressrosa. This feeling made him feel like he was traveling decades ago with Roger. It's so nostalgic. Dressrosa is the base of Don Quixote Doflamingo. He was ready to conquer the characters he knew. Form a powerful force, invade the marine headquarters, defeat the world government, overthrow the rule of the celestial dragons, and establish a new nation. Rayleigh is very capable in gathering intelligence. Half a month later. Dressrosa. The full moon hung high, and the full moonlight enveloped a castle. In a living room in the castle, the lights were bright. Doflamingo looked at the hold in his hand and laughed. He. I really didn't expect that Ye Huo, whom Marine regarded as his hope, actually betrayed Marine. As soon as he finished speaking, a voice suddenly sounded. No, it wasn't me who betrayed Marine, but Marine who betrayed me. The smile on Doflamingo's face suddenly froze. Turning his head slowly, he saw a figure appearing from nowhere. Sitting on a chair 10 meters in front of him. At this moment, the 4 main members of the Don Quixote family, Torpil, Pica, Diamante, Virgo and others looked at the visitor at the same time. Under the blazing white light is a mess of hair. Her hair was very long and covered her eyes, making her appearance unclear. The shaved face was unshaven and looked a bit slovenly. On the table next to him, there is an ordinary standard Marine long sword. Marine's most wanted criminal, former Marine Vice Admiral Ye Huo. At that moment, all members of the Don Quixote family became nervous. He. Marine is not trustworthy. If you and I join forces, we will definitely have a big fight in the new world. Ye Huo Vice Admiral, what do you think? Don Quixote's eyes flashed as he thought. Why does Ye Huo appear here at this time? Ye Huo smiled. Your idea is exactly what I want, but it is not cooperation, but you're joining my strength. You become my little brother, loyal to me, and serve me. Doflamingo's face suddenly darkened. Just when Virgo, the top cadre of his subordinates, was about to move, a sword suddenly erupted and struck Virgo's body. Virgo's armament hockey is as fragile as paper, it was easily cut open. A horrifying scar with deep bones was cut from the left collarbone to the right side of the abdomen. Blood spurted out wildly, and Virgo fell to the ground, seriously injured and passed out. Damn. Pika let out a roar and was about to use his ability. Doflamingo stopped him and said slowly, you all stand down. Ye Huo didn't stop him, just looked at Doflamingo and said, what, do you still want to reach out to me? He. Doflamingo chuckled for a while, and veins appeared on his forehead. You actually want me to be your little brother, you have to show some real skills. What a prickly boy who won't shed tears until he sees the coffin. Ye Huo smiled, showing off the king hockey. Okay, let me see what you are capable of. At that moment, Doflamingo's 5 fingers moved. Ye Huo's figure disappeared from the place instantly. Kicked Doflamingo in the stomach. Doflamingo immediately flew out, smashed the city wall, and shot to 1,000 meters outside the castle. Doflamingo was shocked and angry. He moved his 5 fingers and tied the silk threads everywhere. He stopped in midair and looked in the direction of the castle. In the castle, Yi Mietian walked through the air with a swagger. Doflamingo's face became increasingly ugly. This is moonwalk? He actually practiced physical skills to such an extent. It's really scary. Countless transparent white thin lines emerged from under Ye Huo's body, forming a white wave that shot toward Ye Huo. It is Doflamingo's most powerful trick, the 16-shot divine bullet. After pressing it, 2 purple-black arms stretched out from the white thread. At that moment, the white thread completely wrapped Ye Huo. Is this the only power? Doflamingo's whole body suddenly released an extremely powerful aura, and 16 high-density white threads suddenly emerged. The powerful armament hockey attached to them, turning them into 6 of the toughest and most powerful spears. Completely awakened the ability of string fruit. Ye Huo, go to hell. Doflamingo roared, and God kill shot towards Ye Huo. Use your strongest ability. I will completely defeat you and let you know how big the gap is between you and me. Doflamingo, I held back just now, otherwise you would have been a corpse. Above Shu Zuo's head, Ye Huo crossed his arms and said calmly, if you only have this ability, you are not worthy of being my little brother. Ha. How arrogant. Doflamingo's entire face darkened completely. He. What a careless person. Doflamingo pulled hard with the fingers of both hands, and the white wave was like a white wave that was tightly wrapped around Wang Jiaohao. Like a snake wrapping around its prey, trying to wrap around Ye Huo body minced. The 100-meter tall Suzuo reappeared. At this moment, a voice sounded from the ball of confession thread. 2 big hands grabbed the white thread and pulled hard, causing the white threads to break. He. Ye Huo, you are so arrogant. Ye Huo holds a long sword, with purple-black armament hockey surrounding it. Chapter 105. Crush the future Marine Admiral Fujitora smiles. Looking at the stabbing god Zhu Sha, Ye Huo's lips curled up. The right hand is clenched into a fist, and the super hard costume-colored hockey is attached to it. Immediately afterwards, the golden true fire of the sun condensed in his palm, forming an extremely huge blazing fireball. At that moment, a huge fireball suddenly blasted towards God Killer. Ye Huo's fist has already touched the tip of God's killing. The powerful force of the super hard armament Haki smashes the tip of the God Slayer. The blazing true fire of the sun burned the white thread to ashes. Ye Huo punched down, and the 16 gods killed instantly turned into ashes. Ye Huo's fist stayed in front of Doflamingo's eyebrows. The hot real fire of the sun gradually dissipated. The super hard armament Haki's power also gradually fades away. Ye Huo put away his fist and looked at Doflamingo and said, "Now, you know the gap between you and me. From now on, you will be my little brother." Doflamingo looked at the remaining burn marks on the ground and suddenly said, "Sakazuki, were you killed?" Ye Huo nodded. Dolphin 457 Ming's lips raised Lao Gao's lips. "Ha ha ha. No wonder the world government has a reward of 10 billion for you. If I follow you, my life will not be peaceful, right?" Ye Huo turned around and said calmly, "It won't be long before I can continue to be powerful, overthrow the world government, kill the celestial dragons, and redefine the order of the world." Doflamingo's smile froze. He looked at Ye Huo like he was crazy. Ye Huo was a senior executive at Marine. Doesn't he know how powerful the world government is? Doesn't he know how terrifying the power the celestial dragons wield? He actually said such arrogant words. A lunatic, a guy who is even more crazy than a lunatic. Equally crazy is his terrifying strength. It's so terrifying that it's unbelievable. If it were him, it might really be possible to overthrow the world government and overthrow the rule of the celestial dragons. The expression on Doflamingo's face gradually normalized, his smile returned again, and he became even more enthusiastic and excited. He seems to have seen Ye Huo invade the world government and kill the celestial dragon's lair. A more magnificent and exciting battle than Summit War is unfolding. He. Doflamingo bowed slightly and said, "I, Doflamingo and the entire Don Quixote family, are willing to obey you as my master." Doflamingo's eyes sparkled with anticipation. He looks forward to the moment when Ye Huo takes over the world government and enters Marijoy. Ye Huo gave an order, asking Doflamingo to abandon all useless things, lead the elite, and set sail for the great voyage. Doflamingo's army is vast and has countless gold, silver and jewels, all of which take time to process. Ye Huo has been hanging out here these days. Ye Huo found a pub and sat down. Just as he ordered a bottle of wine, a man suddenly came over and sat down opposite him. The man is tall, wearing a purple kimono and a purple belt. He has short black hair and an X-shaped scar on the left side of his forehead extending to both eyes. Wearing white gauntlets on his hands, his arms were wrapped with straps, and he held a knife in his hand. Ye Huo recognized him at a glance. The old man in front of me just smiled broadly. The world government recruited troops all over the world, and Fujitora stood out with a smile and became the Marine Admiral. I really don't know how this man could appear here at this time. But it came just in time. His team continues to expand, and he needs masters like Fujitora Yishao. "Boss, H wine, BCFB, Kuohu's steady voice sounded slowly. The owner of the shop hurriedly brought the drinks. Fujitora smiled and couldn't help but touch the cup with his hand. He touched it a few times but couldn't touch it. Ye Huo pushed the cup into his hand. Fujitora smiled and nodded slightly, "Thank you." Ye Huo raised the corner of his mouth, deliberately looking for trouble. "Your Excellency, your eyes don't seem to be very good." Fujitora smiled and took a sip of wine, put down the glass, and said slowly, "If you can't see the right path in the world, what's the use of having good eyes? It's better for me, a blind man, to give up my eyes and see the world with my heart." "Oh." Ye Huo's voice rose, and he heard the implication of Fujitora's words, saying that his right eye was unintentional and he went astray. "Your Excellency is so loud. Are you sure that you are on the right path?" "Okay. Let me tell you a story. There was a man who possessed eye fruit, shock fruit, dark fruit, world government, or in other words, celestial dragons coveted his ability to fuse fruits and wanted to get his 3 fruits, so he lied. He said that he was asked to fight Sakazuki, but he was asked to wear a sea stone, and he agreed. It turned out to be a hoax against him, so he killed Sakazuki and left Marine. Let me ask you, is he at fault? Let me ask you, is the justice that Marine insists on the right way?" Fujitora smiled slightly and said slowly, "Are you so confident in yourself? Similarly, if you lose, your life is mine. Do you dare to accept it? This blind man's drinking money is mine." Ye Huo threw down 10,000 belly and turned around to leave. On the opposite side, Fujitora smiled and said, "Fighting on the sea is not good for you, you can choose to fight on land." Fujitora smiled and was silent for a moment, then sighed, "The news I got is not like this. Early next morning. Schwanki, I'll wait for you in the southern waters tomorrow morning." Ye Huo smiled, "Stop talking nonsense, I'll let you take action first." "Fujitora, do you dare to bet with me? On the small boat to the east." Ye Huo stood holding a sword. The sun was just rising above the sea. Ye Huo laughed loudly when he heard this, of course. "Huh, how can the world government tell the truth? Then, please be careful." Fujitora smiled and held the handle of the knife with his right hand, armament hockey wrapped around the blade. "Okay, I'll bet with you." Fujitora raised his head, opened his eyelids slightly, and looked at Ye Huo with wide eyes. "I like gambling, tell me, how to gamble, and what to gamble on." Ye Huo smiled and said, I also like to gamble, and I like to bet big. If you can beat me, I will let you do whatever you want. Under the soft sunshine, two small boats were parked on the sparkling sea. Chapter 106. 10,000 times reward, super sword skills, thousands of tigers. Gravity squeeze. The next moment, Fujitora jumped up with a smile and slashed at Ye Huo with a knife. The entire boat shattered instantly, and a huge puddle appeared on the sea. Ye Huo suddenly felt extremely strong pressure. Yes, some strength. Ye Huo smiled, and instantly used moonwalk, away from Fujitora Yisha's suppression, and came to the top of his head, and hit Fujitora with a punch attached to the super hard armament hockey. At that moment, Fujitora smiled and swung the knife horizontally. Ye Huo felt that the gravity was out of order, and his buttocks were tearing him back. But at that moment, Ye Huo kicked out 10,000 kicks in an instant. Boom boom boom. The compressed air vibrates like the roar of artillery. And Ye Huo was like a cannonball, breaking through the pull of gravity and punching Fujitora on the head. Fujitora reversed gravity at that moment. His body immediately moved sideways to avoid this fatal blow. Ye Huo's fist hit the water. There was a loud bang. Countless water splashes exploded. A huge puddle nearly a kilometer in diameter emerged. Fujitora smiled and twitched the corners of his mouth, and landed on the boat again, followed closely by Fujitora holding the long knife upside down. Armament hockey and the power of numerous fruits converge on the blade. Tiger. Fujitora smiled and shouted loudly, waved his right hand forward, and an unparalleled lateral gravity condensed into an illusory tiger, rushing towards Ye Huo. Wherever it passes, the seawater is twisted into countless water droplets. The seawater mixed with water droplets bombarded Ye Huo. As long as Ye Huo can get seawater on his body, he wins. Ye Huo grasped the sword tightly. Ultra-hard armament hockey is wrapped around it. At the same time, a white light group emerged from the tip of the sword. Ye Huo stood on the space with a sword. The next moment, a purple-black sword instantly broke through the endless sea water. The space shattered, and the powerful power immediately offset the power of the fruits. Even the tiger can't do anything about it. It seems that the only way is to use that move. Fujitora smiled and quickly turned the sword around his body and quickly inserted it back into the hilt. The light of gravity. A purple gravity halo visible to the naked eye quickly shot into the void. The next moment, a streak of fire fell from the sky. Ye Huo looked up and saw meteorites falling from the sky. The meteorite rubs against the air, creating a fiery flame. A pirate version of meteorites falling from the sky? Circles of ripples appeared in Ye Huo's eyes. The purple-black energy gathered together and condensed into a purple-black giant that was thousands of meters high. The giant raised his head and stretched out 4 arms at the same time. At that moment, the 4 arms were once again enveloped in a layer of super-hard armament hockey. Ye Huo turned his back to the sky and made a hugging gesture. Fujitora noticed Ye Huo's appearance. His expression changed. What does this guy want to do? Catching a meteorite with bare hands. Is he crazy? The meteorite fell too fast. A few seconds later, it hit Ye Huo's head. Zuzo suddenly let out a roar. 4 arms suddenly thrust into the air. It withstood the falling meteorite for a moment. Boom. A huge impact and roar echoed throughout the world. Terrifying shock waves struck in all directions. The seawater created waves tens of meters high. Suzuo's legs sank deeply into the seabed. The 4 arms were slightly intact, and cracks appeared. But, finally withstood the falling meteorite. The meteorite is more than 20 meters in diameter. The terrifying power under heavy blessing can even destroy a larger island. However, Ye Huo caught him abruptly. Fujitora smiled and stared blankly at the burning fire meteorite. Looking at the huge purple-black giant, look at Ye Huo inside the giant. Is he still a human? Fujitora smiled as this thought came to his mind. There was no more fighting spirit in his heart. Ye Huo felt the change in Fujitora's aura when he smiled. The corner of his mouth curled up. This was exactly what he wanted. Ye Huo threw the meteorite aside. The purple-black hair gradually dissipates. Fujitora, if you have any other skills, just use them. Fujitora sighed. Oh, there's no need to compete. Even 10 of me are no match for you. I'm willing to admit defeat. My life is yours. Ye Huo stretched out his right hand and said with a smile, welcome to join. Fujitora stretched out his right hand and the two held it tightly. Ye Huo smiled and said, Fujitora, the tiger move you just used is very interesting. It can be used to condense the sword energy into a tiger head. You can use it again. This time, don't use the power of the heavy fruit, only use the sword energy. Fujitora nodded, and then held the meteoric blade backwards, with black hockey surrounding the blade. Ye Huo used Rinnegan to watch closely and copied every move of Fujitora, every muscle movement, and every bit of hockey's use with his eyes. Fujitora swung out again, and a translucent tiger sword energy that was tens of meters high roared out and hit the water hard, causing terrifying destructive power. This time, Ye Huo finally copied it completely. Ding, congratulations to host for learning the sword skill tiger. 1,000 times reward is triggered. 1. Sword skill 10,000 tigers. 1 sword slashes out, and the sword energy condenses 10,000 sword energy tigers that are 30 meters in size. 2. Sword skills super powerful tiger. With one sword, he slashes out, the sword energy condenses into a 1,000-meter sized sword energy tiger. Ye Huo thought for a moment. Those who attacked alone have already been killed with swords. There is still a need for a group attack. I choose the sword skill 10,000 tigers. Ye Huo made his choice, then smiled and said, I'll give it a try too. Request flowers 0. Ye Huo held the sword upside down, and armament hockey began to circle around the sword, slowly accumulating strength. Fujitora smiled and said, this sword skill requires skill, but based on your talent, Lord Ye Huo, you should be able to master it within 3 years. As soon as he finished speaking, a roar suddenly sounded. 10,000 giant black sword she tigers with a height of 30 meters were galloping and roaring as they hit the sea. The entire sea surface was enveloped by the purple-black sword energy tiger. Huge roars and roars came one after another. Countless amounts of seawater were blown into the air. Then, a heavy rain fell. Countless rainbows emerged. Ye Huo put away his sword, looked at Fujitora aside and said with a smile, Fujitora, what did you just say about 3 years? Fujitora smiled. Fujitora smiled sad face 0. Haha, it's nothing. 0. Nothing. Fujitora smiled. I practiced this move for 2 years. This is because he is extremely talented in kendo. And to this day, he can only transform the sword energy into a tiger. He couldn't even transform into 2 tigers. But this lord only watched me perform the sword skill Fierce Tiger twice just now. He actually mastered the trick, and his power was 10,000 times more powerful than his own. Is this what is called genius? No, genius is no longer enough to describe it. This should be a monster. From ancient times to the present, only one evildoer has appeared. He was destined to become the master of the sea. 2 days later, Ye Huo set off again. This time it was no longer the same thing between him and Rayleigh. Doflamingo built a dragon boat, more than 300 meters long and 60 meters wide, loaded with cargo and people and headed towards the Great Navigation Road. Half a month later, the dragon boat docked near a port, preparing to replenish supplies before continuing its voyage. But as soon as we got to the harbor, we found that there were no civilians here, and there were marines everywhere. At the same time, 2 cannons rang out, and warships sailed out one after another from the bay hidden behind the mountain. 100 battleships lined up in a row, their guns aimed at the port. Hee, our whereabouts have been leaked. On the deck of the dragon boat, Doflamingo smiled sinisterly and looked at Ye Huo. Master, what should we do? Ye Huo stood on the deck, his clothes fluttering in the sea breeze and his hair flying. Those eyes are as calm as ever. Boom boom boom. A series of gunfire sounded. Thousands of cannonballs hit the dragon boat together. Ye Huo stood at the front, holding the hilt of the sword behind his back. Armament hockey circled the long sword, and then swung it out violently. Sword skills are as good as those of 10,000 tigers. Chapter 107. One man and one sword slaughtered hundreds of marine fleets. 10,000 sword energy condensed into a fierce tiger galloping out. The entire sky was rendered into darkness. The terrifying tiger roar echoed through the harbor. The tiger collided with the cannonball, making a deafening roar. The tiger group lost more than 1,000, but the remaining nearly 9,000 sword energy tigers crashed into the 100 warships. Boom boom boom. A series of explosions suddenly sounded. The shell exploded, producing a dazzling fire and a louder explosion. One warship after another was blown to pieces. One by one, the crew members fell into the water, crying and shouting. Wolf smoke rose into the sky and filled the entire sea area. Ye Huo slowly sheathed his sword and said calmly, collect supplies and prepare to set sail. Doflamingo was completely stunned at this time. What was that just now? What about the 587 sword skills? How could there be such terrifying sword skills in this world? How many sword she tigers are there? How could he release so much tiger sword energy? The shock in Doflamingo's eyes was gradually replaced by crazy excitement. Hee, it's getting more and more interesting. Doflamingo licked his lips. He couldn't wait to see Ye Huo attack the world government and Marijoy. With just one man and one sword, he slaughtered hundreds of marine warships? Drops of cold sweat appeared on Rayleigh's forehead. His eyes were also filled with unspeakable shock. If he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, he would never believe it. Rayleigh looked at Ye Huo's profile. Her long hair blocks her eyes. His face was covered with black stubble. Although he couldn't see his face clearly, it was certain that he was definitely no more than 25 years old. How could someone so young possess such terrifying power? How did he practice? Doflamingo's men shipped to collect supplies. Marine fled in all directions. Everything I had originally planned, I didn't want to end up like this. Ye Huo's strength is terrifying. He poses too great a threat to world government. As a result, within half a month, Ye Huo's reward was directly increased to 15 billion belly. 15 billion belly is enough to make many people take action. On the Grand Line, all the famous pirates began to look for Ye Huo. Although Ye Huo's strength is rumored to be extremely exaggerated. But in their opinion, Marine over-promoted Ye Huo's power to cover up his own incompetence. Ye Huo defeated Whitebeard only because Whitebeard was seriously ill and injured, and Ye Huo took advantage of him. Kill Blackbeard instantly. Blackbeard isn't really a master, it's just that dark fruit is powerful. If Hokage is better, then Blackbeard is definitely not the right person. And what if Ye Huo is powerful? Is it still better than Roger, the pirate king of the past? Even Roger was caught and executed by Marine. I believe that it won't be long before Ye Huo, who caused a huge stir, will make the same mistake as Roger. They want to find Ye Huo as soon as possible and eat the huge 15 billion bonus while other pirates are not taking action. The Babao Navy, Whitebeard too, and the Fishmen are all ready to make a move. Kid, Kira, Trafalgar Law, Skulik Manap and other extremely evil times are also looking for traces of Ye Huo. They want to see what the legendary hope of Marine, the #1 public enemy of the world government, is. Figure. The 4 Emperors Bigmom pirates and the 4 Emperors Beasts pirates also showed great interest in this. Shanks, 5 Elders, Celestial Dragons, etc. are also paying attention to Ye Huo. The secret agency of the world government has sent various personnel to start assassinating Ye Huo. Ye Huo had no idea that he would turn the entire new world upside down. At this time, Ye Huo and his party had arrived at the Fishmen Island. Ye Huo asked Doflamingo to replenish supplies and be ready to set sail at any time. The Fishmen Island is almost entirely filled with fishmen, but there are also many other groups. Rayleigh came back again and took Ye Huo to a famous tavern on the Fishmen Island. Taverns are always the most well-informed places. Have you heard that Ye Huo's bounty has increased by another 5 billion? Tisk, 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 if anyone can catch him and send him to Senior Sister's government, he won't have to worry about it for 10 lifetimes. Oh, catch him? I'm afraid he will kill you before you catch him. Do you think this Ye Huo will be caught? It's hard to say. The sea is so big. If he hides, who can find him? Boss, is that Ye Huo really that powerful? A killer whale man asked a whale shark man next to him. The whale shark man is tall and majestic, with a short black beard on his chin, a scar on the left corner of his left eye, 2 large teeth on his lower jaw, a sun symbol on his chest, and a yukata with embroidered patterns on it. That man is more powerful than you think. The whale shark man spoke slowly. Almost at the same time, a burst of laughter sounded. Haha, it is really rare to be praised by Haisha Jinbei. This whale shark man is none other than Keisha Jinbei. Jinbei's expression changed when he heard this. He suddenly turned around and walked over to the 2 people. The person in front was wearing a shabby windbreaker with countless holes burned by cigarette butts. A head of half-long black hair blocked his eyes, and the face of the swordsman and axe was unshaven. The kimono he wore was also stained on the left side and a little stained on the right side. His big feet were wearing a pair of slippers, which made him look as grubby as he wanted. Jinbei's pupils shrank suddenly and he lost his voice. Ye Huo? Really? As soon as the voice fell, the fishmen present all turned their gazes over. The noisy tavern suddenly became quiet. Ye Huo picked his nose. He didn't like this quiet atmosphere. Ye Huo sat across from Jinbei and said, "We are already acquaintances, why don't you buy me a drink?" Jinbei snapped his fingers, and the boss tremblingly brought over a bottle of wine. Jinbei poured Ye Huo and Rayleigh a drink each. Neither Jinbei nor Rayleigh drank, so Ye Huo picked up the wineglass and drank it all in one gulp. Feeling a fire burning from his throat to his chest and flowing into his belly, Ye Huo sighed, "Good wine, the fishman's wine is really delicious." Jinbei looked serious. "Ye Huo, you are now being targeted by the world government. Wherever you go, there will be disaster. This is a place that I value. I have no grudges against you. I ask you to leave here as soon as possible." Ye Huo smiled when he heard this. "Yes, as long as you agree to one condition, I will leave immediately." "What conditions?" Chapter 108 I stepped on thousands of dragons and came from the clouds. Follow me and become my crew. What? Jinbei's eyes widened and he said in disbelief, "Let me become your crew member." Ye Huo nodded. "Yes, I want you to become my subordinate." "Impossible." Jinbei refused decisively. Ye Huo smiled and said, "You and I have a fight. I don't need eye fruit, I don't need hockey, I don't need swordsmanship, I don't need shock fruit, I don't need physical skills. If you beat me, I won't say anything and leave immediately. If you lose now, you have to get on my boat." Jinbei narrowed his eyes slightly. "Ye Huo, you look down on me too much. If you want me to respect you, then show your strength. In the evening 3 days later, I will wait for you on the sea 300 miles east of the Fishmen Island. If you don't come, you know the consequences." After saying that, Ye Huo turned and left. Go and don't give Jinbei any chance to choose. Ye Huo walked away for a long time. This tavern has just slowly regained its vitality. The killer whale man looked ugly. Isn't this Ye Huo too overbearing? They don't take us fishmen seriously at all. Boss, you must teach him a lesson. Jinbei clenched his fists and said sternly, "Ye Huo, you are bullying someone too much. I will teach him a lesson in 3 days. Boss, do you want to let this news out?" "No, we can't do anything treacherous." 12. Boss, he didn't tell us to keep it a secret, so it wouldn't be considered a breach of trust if we told him. That won't work either. This is a one-on-one battle between me and him. Chief, are you overconfident this time? Rayleigh is a little worried. Jinbei is very powerful and was once a Shichibukai. How could Ye Huo still be Jinbei's opponent despite giving up so many abilities? If he didn't use physical skills, he would definitely fall into the water and be defeated. In 3 days, prepare to accept the Fishman Pirates. Ye Huo's voice is still full of confidence. His words were full of the kingly haki. Rayleigh had no choice but to go and prepare. Ye Huo began to awaken the Sun Fruit ability alone in the east of the island. He seems to have an affinity for fire. There is still no progress in the development of Superpower Shock Fruit and Dark Fruit. Sun Fruit has already had a breakthrough. This breakthrough is amazing. It felt like a light bulb moment. You suddenly understand a lot. It's like being enlightened. Ye Huo has another way to use the Fruit of the Sun in his mind. Ye Huo began to try, and the fire tide in his body was generally used out of his body. The flames continued to condense, and in an instant they condensed into a 100-meter-long sun dragon. Ye Huo controls the fire dragon, which can leap into the air, rush into the distance, and entangle a rock, which will be directly burned to ashes. Ye Huo was secretly speechless. The power of this fire dragon is a bit too terrifying. Almost at the same time, the system's voice sounded again. Ding! Congratulations to host for learning Sun True Fire Flame Dragon. 1000 times reward trigger 1. The True Fire Dragon Group of the Sun releases 10,000 True Fire Dragons of the Sun that are 100 meters long at a time. 2. Super Powerful Sun True Fire Flame Dragon. Release a huge Sun True Fire Flame Dragon that is more than 2,000 meters long at a time. Ye Huo was in no hurry to make a choice. He began by thinking about the battles he might face in the future. Large-scale fighting is inevitable, but he also received powerful help. And over time, there are more and more masters around him, and the miscellaneous fish can be dealt with by them. Therefore, what I have to face are basically the top calendar areas. Such as Kaido, Bigmom, Red Hair, 5 Elders, and the mysterious power of celestial dragons. So now I need a powerful attack from a single target. Thinking of this, Ye Huo immediately said, I choose the Sun True Fire Flame Dragon Group. Ye Huo suddenly changed his mind at the last moment. He felt that the True Fire Flame Dragon Group of the Sun was more powerful. The evening of the 4th day, Jinbei took a small boat and came to the sea 300 miles east of the Fishman Island. He waited for a while, but there was no ship on the vast sea. Jinbei looks to the west. The vast swaths of sunset were fiery and red, as if someone had set a fire in the sky. It is getting late, and the appointed time is coming soon. Ye Huo has not arrived yet, and it seems that he will not be able to come. Jinbei let out a sigh of relief. If possible, he naturally doesn't want to fight Ye Huo. Just when he was about to swing away, a dragon roar suddenly came from the sky. Jinbei immediately looked sideways and saw a golden fire cloud flying over among the fire clouds in the west. As time went by, the fire cloud gradually came closer, and then he saw clearly that the fire cloud was actually made up of golden fire dragons connected together. 1, 2, 3, 10, 20, 30, 40. Looking around, there are densely packed fire dragons everywhere in the midair. I don't know how many there are. Jinbei was shocked, his eyes filled with disbelief. Where did so many fire dragons come from? At this moment, a fire dragon lowered its head slightly. A figure slowly walked up to the fire dragon's head, and a loud laugh resounded across the sea. Ha ha ha, Jinbei, you are indeed here, I saw you right. Jinbei's pupils shrank and he exclaimed, Ye Huo, it's you actually. Jinbei's eyes almost popped out, he was so shocked that he couldn't speak clearly. Ye Huo is very satisfied with Jinbei's performance. He chose the True Fire of the Sun and 10,000 Dragons group because of the expression on Jinbei's face at this moment. Jinbei, if I strike first, you won't have the slightest chance, so I'll let you strike first. In front of all the dragons, the fire dragon heads. Ye Huo crossed his arms across his chest, raised his head slightly, and when the wind blew, his hair on his forehead fluttered slightly, revealing his dominating gaze. He is like the king of fire, he is the king of dragons. Just waiting for his order, thousands of dragons would cover him and destroy all living things in the world. Jinbei took a deep breath. Ye Huo, then I'm not welcome. Jinbei knew that if Ye Huo made the first move, he would never stand a chance. Jinbei stood on the sea surface, with his left leg in front and his right leg behind him. His right fist was clenched around his waist. A large amount of water vapor condensed on his right fist. 307 The sea surface suddenly stirred up nearly wild waves. The secret meaning of Fishman Karate is Takaru soon. There was a loud shout, Jinbei punched out, and the powerful water flow condensed into a huge water dragon, sweeping towards Ye Huo with a roar. Ye Huo moved his hands slightly, and the next moment, 100 fire dragons swooped down at the same time. He instantly collided with the huge water dragon. Jinbei was instantly defeated and was knocked back by the power of Tang Kao's fist. Jinbei's face changed drastically. How could Ye Huo's flames be so terrifying? Even Yi Wusu was suppressed by his fire. Ye Huo waved his hand again, and 1,000 fire dragons pressed down from one side. Jinbei punched the air in his eyes. Ye Huo waved his hand again, and another 1,000 fire dragons pressed down on him. Tang Kao's fist. Jinbei's face turned pale, obviously unable to hold on. In just an instant, hundreds of fire dragons saw the water dragon evaporate, and a large amount of mist flew up, condensing into a white cloud and rising into the sky. Jinbei's body began to tremble. Hundreds of fire dragons continued to crash down, rushing towards Jinbei from all directions. Ye Huo waved his hand and pressed directly on 2,000 fire dragons. His chest instantly sunk in, blood overflowed from his mouth, and his figure flew hundreds of meters backwards. A huge roar echoed across the sea. Jinbei took up his stance again. Flames burst and mist steamed. The next moment, invisible shockwaves spread in all directions. Hundreds of fire dragons immediately began to retreat. At that moment, Ye Huo waved his hand again, and countless fire dragons crashed into the sea. Chapter 109. 7,000 gas fists, 10,000 times reward, 7,000 sun true fire cannons. At that moment, the surrounding temperature suddenly increased hundreds of times. The sea suddenly became steamy. Many fish in the sea were scalded to death in an instant. One sea kings even struggled to jump out of the sea. The fire dragon flew over and entangled itself, and sea kings instantly turned into ashes. The fire dragon is still burning in the water. The terror of the true sun fire can be seen in general. A large amount of sea water is transpiration, and countless bubbles emerge from the sea surface. Jinbei is completely surrounded by fire dragons. His skin had been burned by the fire dragon. Has lost the ability to resist. The life spirit is passing quickly. Ye Huo accepted the fire dragon immediately. He urged Suzuo to fish up Jinbei and fly to the island. After a while, Jinbei's wounds began to slowly recover. Ye Huo was a little surprised. The fish man's resilience is really powerful. Jinbei opened his eyes and saw Ye Huo next to him, and couldn't help but sigh, I lost. Ye Huo curled his lips, losing to me is the glory of your life. In the future, the wound on your chest will become your pride. Jinbei was speechless for a while. He has seen narcissists. But I have never seen such a shameless person. But it cannot be denied. The strength of the man in front of me is absolutely boundless. Even Bigmom, Kaido, and Red Hair may not be his opponents. Perhaps, in the near future, he will become the strongest man in the new sea. Become the king of the sea. I'm willing to admit defeat. Since I lost to you, then I will recognize you as the captain, but not yet. Jinbei looked at Ye Huo solemnly. Ye Huo smiled indifferently, it's up to you, as long as you are on my boat. From now on, just like Rayleigh, you can call me leader. As he spoke, Ye Huo suddenly said, your 7,000 gas fist is pretty good. You can use it again and I will learn from you. Jinbei was stunned for a moment, then said, leader, this is the power of the fishmen. Only fishmen who can control water can use it. You don't have to worry about this, just do it again. Ye Huo turned on Rinnegan and watched Jinbei's movements carefully. Jinbei had no choice but to use 7,000 gas weapons again. Ye Huo's eyes were so wide open that he saw every movement of Jinbei's muscles and how every drop of water condensed, copying them accurately. The next moment, Jinbei punched out. Countless water bombs hit the sea surface instantly, creating countless huge puddles. Looking from a distance, the sea surface is full of pits. After using the gas fist, Jinbei looked at Ye Huo, Chief, if you want to learn boxing, I can give you something else. Ye Huo didn't say anything when he heard this, he just walked to the sea and made the same gesture as Jinbei. The whole life is seen in the eyes and admired in the heart. Is this the power of the eye fruit? It was indeed powerful, and the movements he made were exactly the same as his own. It's a pity that if you can't control water, you won't be able to complete the gas fist. Ye Huo never thought of learning the fishman version of gas fist. What he wants to practice is his own gas fist. At that moment, countless sparks condensed on Ye Huo's right fist. The terrifying energy keeps gathering. Ye Huo's right fist bloomed with infinite light. The light was dazzling, the blazing high temperature directly scorched the ground, and the trees in the distance burned. Jinbei couldn't stand the temperature and retreated quickly. The next moment, Ye Huo shouted loudly, 7,000 gas suns, true fire fist. At that moment, countless firelights hit the sea. In an instant, large puddles several meters in diameter appeared on the sea surface. The fire was still burning in the puddle. I don't know how many marine creatures died under this punch. Ye Huo looked back at Jinbei and smiled, Jinbei, how about my punch? The corners of Jinbei's mouth twitched. What kind of monster is this leader he just recognized? He actually learned how to use gas right fist in an instant. And he also merged it with the weird immortal true sun fire. If this was injected into a person's body and then burned, it would be more than 10 times more powerful than his own gas fist. Hey, okay. Very good. Jinbei didn't know how to describe it for a moment. At this time, the system's voice sounded again. Ding. Congratulations to host for creating his own 7,000 gas sun true fire right fist. 1,000 times reward trigger. 1. 70 million sun fire gas right fists. 2. 7,000 true fire cannons of the sun. Ye Huo was slightly startled. What is a fire cannon? Ye Huo checked the introduction. 7,000 true sun fire cannons. Each fire cannon that hits the enemy will explode like a cannonball, possessing extremely terrifying lethality. Ye Huo immediately understood after hearing this. In other words, with one punch, there are 7,000 flame cannonballs. Not bad, not bad, the power is really good. I choose 7,000 true sun fire cannons. Ye Huo touched his chin, imagining when he would be able to use this move. The addition of Haisha Jinbei has greatly expanded Ye Huo's fleet. The dragon boat continues to sail. 3 days later. The dragon boat encountered the biggest thunderstorm cloud ever seen during the trip. In the distance, a thunderstorm cloud was moving rapidly towards them. Click, 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 countless thunders are as dense as a white forest. It was downright terrifying. If you are involved in it, don't even think about it, the dragon boat will definitely be shattered to pieces. Turn the rudder quickly. Quote, turn the turbine to maximum, stay away from the thunderstorm clouds, quickly, quickly, quickly. At this moment, Ye Huo's voice suddenly sounded. Explosions came one after another. Then they saw that their leader, Zhao Li, kept punching, and every time he punched, countless great fireballs with a diameter of 100 meters rushed into the thunderstorm cloud. When passing by a sea hero, suddenly a ship blocked the way. Doflamingo, Rayleigh, and Jinbei all looked at Ye Huo with strange eyes. Then, in the eyes of everyone, Ye Huo stepped on the air with his feet and flew towards the thunderstorm cloud in the distance. The sky in the distance returned to clarity, and countless flames fell one after another. Then, all the crew saw an unforgettable scene that they would surely win. The thunderstorm cloud was exploded immediately. At this moment, everyone was stunned. Rumble. The old man was fat, wearing a green robe on his upper body and yellow trousers on his lower body, with his big belly exposed and a large round shaved head. Don't change course, rush forward. The dragon boat continues to move forward. The old man stared at the dragon boat with his sharp eyes, grinned, and shouted in a loud voice, this water is mine, and I opened this gorge. If you want to cross it from now on, humph, bring it to your neck. There was an old man named Whitebeard standing on the bow. Then Ye Huo returned to the dragon boat and said, keep going. The crew members on the dragon boat were deeply shocked and were stunned for a long time before they came to their senses. Tens of thousands of fireballs sank into the thunder cloud, and then exploded. Chapter 110. 10,000 times reward, super powerful cone dragon slash, shattering mountains and seas with one kick. Hahaha. On the deck of the dragon boat, Doflamingo let out a heart-wrenching laugh. Qingjiao, do you know whose boat you are blocking? This old man is none other than Qingjiao, the leader of the Babao Navy. There are two powerful pirates standing next to Qingjiao, Lao Kai and Abu. Qingjiao crossed her arms across her chest and laughed. Of course I know, it's not the ship of the former Marine Vice Admiral, now the wanted criminal Ye Huo. I'm right, right. The corners of Doflamingo's lips curled up. Hahaha, since you know, why are you here to die? The old man laughed loudly. It's too early for anyone to die now, Doflamingo. I thought you were a tycoon, but I didn't expect you to surrender. I was really wrong about you. Hahaha, I can easily deal with you without master taking action. Doflamingo raised his finger, and Ye Huo's voice suddenly sounded, Brother Ming, stand down. Doflamingo stopped moving and stepped aside obediently. Ye Huo stood at the front of the deck, looking at Qingjiao with one hand behind his back and said, Old man, I'll make a bet with you. I'll stand here with only one hand. If you can take half a step back, the head is yours, let you collect the reward. If you lose, you will follow me from now on, how dare you? Qingjiao was stunned when he heard this, and then a look of anger appeared in his eyes. His legs were slightly bent, an invisible momentum was exuded, a breeze swirled around his body, and the green robe began to shake violently. Armament hockey was attached to Qingjiao's head, and the anger in his eyes reached the 660 peak. A roar suddenly sounded, Ye Huo, if you dare to stop focusing on me, I will definitely take your head today. Qingjiao's legs straightened, her body suddenly bounced up, and her huge round head hit Ye Huo. Ye Huo clenched his fist, and the purple-black super hard armament hockey was attached to it. Ye Huo swung out a punch and hit the green dragon in the head. Boom. There was a muffled sound, and the green dragon's head instantly sunk in, but the Tianling cap raised a tip, and the whole person flew out, smashing the 8th Treasure Navy's ship, and fell straight to the bottom of the sea. Lao Kai, who was in the Babao Navy, changed his expression and jumped up high at that moment. Armament hockey is concentrated on the right foot. At the same time, a physical impact force is attached to the right foot. The fusion of the two forces suddenly produced several times more powerful power. Trianosaurus spike. Lao Kai roared angrily and smashed his heel down on Ye Huo's head. Ye Huo raised his right hand to meet Lao Kai's blow. At that moment, Ye Huo's right hand sank slightly. Ye Huo was slightly surprised. This is a cone nail. It has some skills. Ye Huo immediately increased the power of armament haki, instantly launching Lao Kai away, and the wolf smashed into the mountain on the left side of the strait. There were bursts of cheers on the dragon boat. Ye Huo turned on Rinnegan, looked at Lao Kai and said with a smile, "Come again." Lao Kai was immediately furious. Armament haki drove to ultimate, and there was a faint flash of light. This was the performance of armament haki who was about to enter the advanced level. The impact of physical skills was constantly gathering at his feet. Ye Huo's Rinnegan moved to ultimate. Quickly decompose and copy Lao Kai's armament haki attachment method, as well as the way of using the physical energy. The moment Lao Kai made his move, Ye Huo also learned how to use the Trigonon nail. Ding! Congratulations to the host for learning the cone nail. 1,000 times reward is triggered. 1. Super many Trionosaurus nails. Thousands of kicks in an instant. 2. Super powerful cone dragon split. The force hits 1 point, and the force of 10,000 times cone dragon cone nail explodes. I choose 2. Super powerful cone dragon slash. At that moment, Ye Huo raised his right leg, and the heel was attached to armament haki, which was shining with purple-black light. At the same time, an extremely powerful energy gathered under his feet. Ye Huo deviated slightly from Lao Kai, aimed at a large mountain in the distance, and slashed down with 1 kick. At that moment, a purple-black energy impact visible to the naked eye rushed out instantly. Wherever it passed, the sea water exploded. Lao Kai was scratched a little and was instantly thrown away. The powerful impact hit the mountain in an instant. Click. There was a loud noise, the mountain broke apart, rocks splashed everywhere, a huge puddle appeared on the sea surface, and a violent storm circled the distance. The next moment, a huge shock wave formed a huge ocean wave. The dragon boat shook, and the fleet of the Babao Navy suddenly became disordered. There was a series of exclamations. After a while, the sea calmed down. The high mountains that originally blocked it have disappeared. A new strait has been formed. The Babao Navy looked at this scene in shock. They were all stunned. Is this a power that humans can exert? Is this the strength of the former Marine Star of Hope, the Marine trader who was wanted by Marine for 15 billion? Horrible, really terrible. On the dragon boat deck, Ye Huo took out a cigarette and put it to his mouth. Doflamingo immediately came over and lit the fire. Ye Huo took a deep breath and exhaled a circle of smoke. Ye Huo looked at Qingzhao and said, "Qingzhao, Lao Kai, from today on, you will call me leader." Qingzhao and Lao Kai looked at each other. Ye Huo could have taken their lives, but spared them. Showing such great strength again. They have no reason to refuse. I'll wait and see the leader. Qingzhao and Lao Kai saluted Ye Huo one after another. Ye Huo bomb flew away the cigarette butt and said, "Set sail." The dragon boat and the Babao Navy crossed the strait and continued sailing towards the new world. Ye Huo's purpose is clear. That is to strengthen yourself. His current target is Charlotte Linlin, one of the 4 emperors. Of course, if you meet someone with decent abilities on the way, you will be fine. Then take it together. He needs power. Powerful enough to fight the world government, the celestial dragons. He will definitely not follow Whitebeard's path. Besieged to death. 3 months later, Ye Huo and his party came to the kingdom of Toto land. The sons and daughters of Bigmom and Bigmom himself also came in person. The miscellaneous fish Ye Huo is handed over to his subordinates. He has only one target, and that is Charlotte Linlin. It is a sea area with Cake Island as the main body and 34 islands scattered around it, which are governed by the 34 ministers. Ye Huo and others made such a big fanfare, naturally Bigmom had already received the notice. He wants to conquer the 4 emperors and use them for himself. Yes, Ye Huo's first target is Junlot Linlin. Rumble. The dragon boat and a dozen ships sailed into the town of Thin Powder on the wheat island of Tolant. Toto land. Give yourself a big boost in attacking world government and Mariajoy. Ka discovered them. The fleet continued sailing and arrived at Cake Island, the base camp of the Bigmom pirates. Ye Huo took 2 steps forward, took out a cigarette, put it in the corner of his mouth, stretched out his finger, and a wisp of golden flame jumped out, lighting the cigarette. With a huff, eyes spread out to both sides, and a tall, plump ant wearing thick lipstick and light purple eyeshadow came out. This is the kingdom of Charlotte Linlin, one of the 4 emperors of New World pirates. As soon as Ye Huo and others set foot on the island, countless pirates came from all directions. It is Bigmom, one of the 4 emperors. Ye Huo took a deep breath, exhaled a puff of smoke, smiled and said, Bigmom, join my fleet and become my subordinate. Chapter 111. 10,000 times reward, Vulcan. As soon as Ye Huo said this, everyone was stunned. Doflamingo, Qingzhao, Lao Kai, and Rayleigh all had a layer of cold sweat on their foreheads. In front of them was New World's 4 emperors Bigmom. Rules a large area of sea. He has many strong men under his command. And its own strength is even more extraordinary. They originally thought that Ye Huo came to Bigmom to cooperate. Who would have thought that it would be so explosive that Bigmom would surrender directly? This man is still as arrogant as ever. The Bigmom High's group were also stunned. They knew that the person facing him was Yi Mie, the former Marine Vice Admiral and now Marine's #1 public enemy. They know Ye Huo is arrogant. But he didn't expect his arrogance to reach this level. He actually made his mother his subordinate. In an instant, the BIGMOM pirates were furious. Stupid traitor Marine, do you know what you are talking about? You actually let mom be your servant, damn Ye Huo, how dare you insult mom like this? Kill him, kill this arrogant little thief. The BIGMOM pirate group is furious. Charlotte Cracker led a group of pirates and rushed forward. Ye Huo used the magneto fruit slightly. In an instant, the pirates like BIGMOM fell to the ground one after another, clinging to the ground and unable to stand up. BIGMOM's eyes shot out with an astonishing cold light, directed at Ye Huo, and laughed loudly. Well, I have never met such an arrogant young man. Ye Huo smiled and said, I am arrogant because I have the capital of the principal. In order to reduce bloodshed and sacrifice, BIGMOM, between our two pirate groups, only you and me will fight. If I lose, everything about me belongs to you. Likewise, if you lose, you and your children will all work for me. How about it? Do you dare to take a gamble? BIGMOM grinned from the corner of his mouth to the back of his ears, exuding an astonishing murderous aura. Observation Hockey locked eyes with Ye Huo. The smile on his face disappeared at that moment, replaced by an extremely gloomy look. Boy, today, I'm going to roast you. When it's cooked, I'll eat you. At that moment, BIGMOM opened his arms and a pink halo surged all over his body. Zeus. BIGMOM shouted, and a white cloud appeared on his left shoulder. Hey, mom. Eyes, ears, and nose appeared. As the pink ability was injected into them, the white clouds turned into black clouds, and the face quickly turned ferocious. At the same time, there were lightning arcs flashing in them, making crackling sounds. Prometheus. A yellow cloud appeared on his right shoulder, and his nose, eyes, and mouth also appeared. Hey, mom. Prometheus's face was soft, but with the injection of pink fruit energy, his face became extremely ferocious. Napoleon. BIGMOM shouted again, and the pirate crown on his head also began to respond. Hey, mom. BIGMOM's face was ferocious and gloomy, and his right fist swung down towards Ye Huo. Flame jet. A roar came from BIGMOM's mouth, and Prometheus immediately released a powerful pillar of fire. The pillar of fire became more and more powerful, and its diameter rapidly expanded from 1 meter to more than 300 meters, covering Ye Huo, Rayleigh, Doflamingo and others in an instant. The blazing heat instantly melted the land of Cake Island. The heat wave surged, and the space seemed to be distorted. Cold sweat appeared on Doflamingo's forehead, but it was evaporated instantly. Rayleigh's face was even more solemn. The BIGMOM pirate group burst into fierce shouts. Seeing that the pillar of fire was about to fall to the top of his head, Ye Huo finally moved. He spit out the cigarette butt, bent his right hand, and formed a hook with the 5 fingers, with purple-black armament hockey attached to the 5 fingers. The next moment, the golden true sun fire appeared on Ye Huo's right palm. Super powerful Sun True Flame Dragon Claw. At that moment, Ye Huo jumped out suddenly and caught the huge fire pillar with a diameter of 100. He dug his 5 fingers into it, penetrated deep into the pillar of fire, and then tore it apart. The power of the super hard armament hockey and the true fire of the sun suddenly exploded, directly tearing the fire pillar apart and exploding. Boom. There was a loud noise, and the pillar of fire exploded into a rain of fire that filled the sky. Ye Huo cast infinite moonwalk and was in front of Prometheus in an instant. The sun's true fire dragon claws instantly grabbed the yellow cloud. Mom. Prometheus exclaimed. BIGMOM was furious, and Zeus in his left hand suddenly released infinite lightning and struck Ye Huo instantly. Telephone. In an instant, lightning flashed, and Big Mom's palm carrying the power of thunder struck Ye Huo. Almost at the same time, Ye Huo raised his right leg. The super hard armament hockey is attached to the right foot, and the energy is rippling, and the two powers merge into one. Asking for flowers. Super powerful cone dragon slash. The two forces collided instantly. Click. A loud noise suddenly erupted. Purple-black armament hockey energy rays burst in all directions. The terrifying lightning also unleashed infinite power and penetrated the ground. Some pirates were affected and died tragically on the spot instantly. Even the aftermath of an Imperial-level battle is not something they can bear. He actually blocked it. Ye Huo arrived and was surprised. The 4 emperors were indeed the 4 emperors, and they actually blocked a kick with 50% of his strength. The next moment, Ye Huo exerted force on his waist, doubled the strength of his legs, and kicked out. BIGMOM suddenly let out a scream and his body flew out. Ye Huo's powerful Sunfire Dragon Claw also suddenly exerted force, grabbing Prometheus directly in front of him. Point 0. The true fire of the sun burns brightly. The dragon's claws held Prometheus tightly. Ye Huo shouted, "Be loyal to me, or I will crush you immediately." 1,000 times reward is triggered. Ding. Congratulations to host for getting the fire spirit Prometheus. The next moment, countless pink fruit energies were overwhelming, sweeping towards Ye Huo B. As Prometheus's voice fell, Ye Huo's ears rang with the sound of the system. At this time, Bigmom looked even more ferocious and roared, "What did you do to my Prometheus?" Bigmom roared, "Ye Huo, I want you to die, let me see how you can block my soul attack. My allegiance, my allegiance. 2. A Vulcan three-legged golden crow. Ye Huo exerted force in his palm, and Prometheus instantly twisted and deformed. Ye Huo didn't even think about it and said directly, "I choose to, the three-legged golden crow of the god of fire." At that moment, Prometheus underwent a huge change. Prometheus was injected with a soul, which became a living body, and naturally had 7 emotions and fears. The golden crow stood on Ye Huo's left shoulder, its eyes gazing at the world, and the terrifying fire element was as vast as the sun. Prometheus yelled, "Mummy mush. Bigmom, why don't you admit defeat yet?" 1. 10,000 Fire Spirit Prometheus. Ye Huo said slowly, "She is no longer your Prometheus, but my Vulcan three-legged golden crow." It turned into a golden crow with golden feathers and 3 legs. Chapter 112 The Decisive Battle of 4 Emperors, Big Mom. Soul attacks are invisible and impossible to defend against. Everyone around who was affected collapsed to the ground in an instant, not knowing whether they were alive or dead. A shadow of infinite fear of death hung over him. However, Ye Huo was not afraid at all. He clenched his right fist, and black energy emerged from his right fist, forming a dark hole. A strong suction force suddenly came from it. The next moment, Bigmog's fruit power was instantly absorbed into it. Dark fruit. Bigmom's expression finally changed. At that moment, Bigmom no longer uses the fruit's ability. An extremely terrifying energy emerged around him. With Bigmom as the center, an extremely powerful impact of the invisible city hit everyone's mind. For a time, countless ordinary pirates rolled their eyes and fainted. That's the power of Conqueror's Haki. Bigmo, 227, already has an extra sword in his hand. The dark armament Haki hovers above it, constantly shining with pink light. At the same time, the invisible Conqueror's Haki is also attached to this sword. At the same time, Zeus's lightning also attached to it. The lightning flashed and crackled. Bigmom's sword has already overwhelmed her with all her strength. This sword is destined to be earth-shattering. The Emperor's Sword of Destruction. At that moment, Bigmom's long sword killed him. A sword gang suddenly slashed out. The sword gang expanded rapidly, from 1 meter to thousands of meters in an instant. The lightning flashes, Haki moves freely. Wherever it passed, the island collapsed, the wind roared, and the deafening howl resounded throughout the world. A terrifying sword, mixed with earth-shattering power, struck in front of Ye Huo. At that moment, Ye Huo also clenched the sword in his hand. Purple-black Haki wraps around the sword. The super-powerful shock fruit condenses into a white light group and adheres to the tip of the sword. Ye Huo struck the space in front of him with his sword. At that moment, countless cracks suddenly appeared in the space. Then it suddenly shattered. A purple-black sword gang, carrying the super-hard armament Haki's hardness and terrifying concussive power, suddenly collided with Bigmom's sword gang. In an instant, countless electric lights flashed and countless Haki collided. The island between the two instantly shattered. A huge roar resounded throughout the world. Terrifying shock waves shot out in all directions. Countless pirates were sent flying backwards by the impact. The unluckier ones were directly hit to death. The lucky ones only suffered minor injuries. Ye Huo's Jian gang instantly broke through Bigmom's Jian gang with an overwhelming advantage. Cake Island was directly cut in two by this terrifying sword. The terrifying power of shock continues. The island kept breaking apart. Huge roaring sounds continued. There were even rolling waves on the sea, slapping the Cake Island. Not long after, most of the Cake Island was swallowed up by the sea water. Only a small piece remained intact. This is something Ye Huo deliberately avoided. Bigmom was already in shock. The sword just struck her right next to her ear. If that sword was aimed at her, then she would definitely die under that sword. What a terrifying sword. How could someone issue such a terrifying sword? As 4 emperors, he is already the strongest combat force at sea. How could this kid have power far beyond hers? Ye Huo glanced at Bigmom, who stayed where he was, knowing that it was difficult for her to accept her failure for a while. Without urging him, he took out a cigarette and held it in his mouth. Doflamingo ran over again and lit him on fire. Ye Huo took a deep breath of cigarette, and then said slowly, Bigmom, I am willing to admit defeat, and the sons and daughters of my leadership, please join my fleet. Bigmom seemed not to hear it and looked up at the sky. Mother, Mom, even if we fight against him, we will never let you become his subordinate and suffer humiliation. Yes, fight him. Her children looked at Bigmom with concern. If you want to go together, attack Ye Huo. 7. Well. Bigmom burst out laughing. She ignored her children, but looked at Ye Huo and said, Well, boy, I heard that you are going to attack the world government and the holy land of celestial dragons, Mariajoy. Ye Huo nodded and said, That's right. Well, Bigmom laughed even more excitedly. Okay, it's very interesting. Boy, you are very interesting. To overthrow the world government and establish Mariajoy, even Roger back then would not have dared to think about it, but you are doing it. It's really interesting. Okay, I have decided. I will stay with you for a while. I want to see if you will be killed by the world government and celestial dragons, or if you will overthrow this old world. Ha 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 ha. Bigmom laughed and looked very excited. With the addition of Bigmom, Ye Huo's fleet has become even larger. But Ye Huo feels that this is not enough, this is far from enough. He also needs more power. He also wants to include Kaido, Shanks, the Revolutionary Army, and other forces into his team. Several days passed. The fleet set sail again and headed to Ghost Island. This time Ye Huo's target is Kaido of the Beasts. Kaido, one of the New World 4 emperors. It is extremely powerful, possessing unimaginable defense and vitality. Known as the strongest creature. A bounty of 4.6111 billion belly was placed on his head by the world government. He is a fish fruit phantom beast with the ability to form a blue dragon. He was executed 40 times without any injuries, but the execution equipment was damaged one after another. It is said that there is no weapon in this world that can kill him. 4 months later, Ye Huo stood at the bow. This black pterosaur should be one of the 3 major disasters in Beasts Pirates, the owner of dragon fruit, ancient species, and pteranodon form, Jin. Why is there an uncontrollable excitement in my heart? It's finally time to fight Kaido of the Beasts, the king of duels. Ye Huo raised the corner of his mouth. Before fighting Kaido, it would be good to use this guy to find out the feel. The pterosaur hovered above Ye Huo's fleet. Jin's huge body fell down, and the strands of energy condensed into a strange fruit, which was grabbed by Ye Huo. Ye Huo pulled out his long sword and fought in the air. A purple-black sword slashed through it instantly, and Jin, one of the 3 disasters, was immediately cut into 2 pieces. The sea breeze ruffled his hair. Those eyes looked at Wang Yanghai. Ye Huo looked up and saw that the black spot was gradually getting bigger. I don't know what this pteranodon will look like after it increases 10,000 times. Ding. Congratulations to host, you have obtained the dragon fruit, ancient species, and pteranodon form. Unexpectedly, Ye Huo couldn't catch even one of his blows. At this moment, suddenly a black dot flew from the distant sky. Ye Huo narrowed his eyes slightly and recognized it. Finally, the black spot turned into a black 2.7-inch wing with a wingspan of 100 meters. 1,000 times reward is triggered. Ghost King Island is coming. Chapter 113. 10,000 times reward for the sacred dragon's decisive battle with the strongest creature on the surface. 1. 10,000 dragon fruits ancient species pteranodon form. 2. A dragon fruit ancient species sacred dragon form. I choose the second one, the sacred dragon form. As Ye Huo's voice fell, the devil fruit in my hand has changed. Qin Fang swallowed the devil fruit in one gulp. Devil fruit turned into an extremely powerful force flowing through his body. Under the influence of dark fruit, it can coexist peacefully with other fruits. Ye Huo now stimulates the energy of the fruit. Energy flows from his abdomen to his entire body. The next moment, his body began to change drastically. The hands turned into wings, which spread out to a length of more than 2,000 meters. The legs turned into huge dragon claws. The neck is elongated and a dragon head is powerful hockey. Opening his mouth slightly, the spittle he spurted out burned into flames. Ye Huo spreads his wings and soars, soaring into the sky. The strong wind blows beneath him, lifting up his huge body. Ye Huo swooped down. The next moment, the power of Rinnegan appeared in Ye Huo's eyes. Susanoo turned into scales and covered the body of the sacred dragon. Boom. There was a loud noise, and the holy sun dragon entered the sea. The next moment, the water surface exploded again. The sacred dragon jumped up from the water, holding a sea king's under its claws. Ye Huo wraps his body with his left hair and is completely affected by the sea water. Ye Huo was so happy that he opened his mouth and spat out a pillar of fire towards the sea kings. Sea kings suddenly burst into flames. The next moment, he was burned to death by the blazing flames. In a moment, the sacred dragon flew over the dragon boat. As soon as his claws were released, sea kings crashed down near the dragon boat. Eat Poseidon tonight. Ye Huo's majestic voice sounded from above. Tens of thousands of pirates looked into the void at the same time. Looking at the giant god-tier holy dragon with a wingspan of 2,000 meters, my heart was filled with shock. The next moment, an extremely shocking cheer suddenly broke out. Chief, 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 shouted one after another, and finally all the voices gathered together. The sound was like ocean waves, one wave higher than the other, one wave overriding the other, layer upon layer, surging. In midair, Ye Huo let out a loud roar. Immediately afterwards, an extremely loud voice came out of the mouth of a sacred dragon. King of beasts Kaido, I have been waiting for you for a long time. If you are a hero, come out and fight. The loud sound was like muffled thunder, rolling down from the sky. On Ghost King Island, the pirates under Kaido of the beasts all looked to the sky. Their eyes were about to pop out. What is that in the sky? Covering the sky and the sun, it was even bigger than the boss. Also, he actually challenged the boss to a duel. Don't know who will win. At this time, deep in the Ghost King Island, in that dark environment, a huge body suddenly stood up. The figure is extremely tall, with black hair shawl, a pair of long horns on the top of his head, long beards on both sides of his lips, a dragon scale tattoo on his left arm, his upper body is bare, and there is an X-shaped scar on his right abdomen. There is a stick beside him mace. The man raised his head slightly and looked into the air with his big copper bell eyes. He stood up and grabbed the mace in his right hand. Black armament hockey began to appear all over his body, clinging to his body. Legs slightly bent. The next moment, a roar echoed throughout Ghost King Island. The figure's legs suddenly straightened, and it instantly broke through the roof and flew hundreds of meters into the air. Then, endless black energy surged. The figure's head turned into a dragon's head. The neck quickly lengthened, the hands turned into two front paws, the abdomen turned into a dragon's belly, the legs turned into hind paws, the long tail swept the void, and a 1,000-meter-long blue dragon leapt into the air. Thousands of meters in the air. The Chinmi Azure Dragon's body is covered with blue scales, with a layer of armament hockey attached to the scales, making it even tougher. 10,000 meters above the ground, the Sacred Dragon with a wingspan of 2,000 meters and the 1,000-meter Green Dragon are suspended 10,000 meters apart. Xinglong spit out human words and asked, Marine Trader General, Ye Huo. Exactly. Ye Huo's voice came out of the Sacred Dragon's mouth, King of Beasts, Kaido. Xinglong spoke again, you know my fate, but you dare to come and die. The Sacred Dragon laughed loudly in the air, and the sound of the dragon's roar shook the heaven and the earth, setting off a gust of wind. Ha ha ha, it's so funny, Kaido. Look at your size, it's only 1,000 meters in size, but I'm big enough 2,000 meters away, the energy in the body is 1,000 times greater than yours. Kaido, in the past you were invincible on the sea, but today, you will be defeated in my hands. Xinglong's eyes erupted with an astonishing red light, and he burst out laughing suddenly. It's true that newborn calves are not afraid of tigers. Although your fruit is powerful, I'm afraid you just got it not long ago. It has not been developed yet, and you are not my opponent at all. Boy, I want your fruit. As soon as the words fell, Xinglong flew into the air with all four claws and crashed into Ye Huo. Ye Huo fluttered his wings, his body rose up, his wings were raised high, his claws shone with the light of super hard armament hockey, and his huge body rushed down like a delta fighter. Just when the two parties were about to meet each other, Kaido Xinglong suddenly circled. The blue dragon wags its tail. The tail that was also attached to armament hockey fiercely swept towards the claws of the sacred dragon. At that moment, the sacred dragon's claws collided with the green dragon's tail. At that moment, a dazzling light exploded from the center of the collision. Immediately afterwards, there was a sudden explosion that sounded like the beginning of the world. The world seemed to explode. The pirates 10,000 meters below all opened their mouths and covered their ears. 257 The next moment, terrifying shock waves began to sweep across all directions. The wind was blowing hard. The clouds dissipated instantly. The strong wind swept up to 10,000 meters below the ground, causing all the pirates to crawl to the ground. Some unlucky ones were simply blown away. The two powerful men only made a tentative attack, which caused such a large-scale movement. The explosions continued, and finally Ye Huo became more powerful. With a burst of wings and a strong force under his feet, the green dragon's scales were immediately scratched, and blood immediately fell down. Ye Huo swung his legs to throw Xinglong out. The green dragon circled around, instantly wrapped around Ye Huo's body, and bit the sacred dragon's neck. The sacred dragon's neck was protected by whiskers and was extremely hard, but it was still bitten by the green dragon and cracked. White halos suddenly appeared on Ye Huo's wings. The next moment, the wings suddenly clamped together, and the aperture hit the space hard. Click click click. The space instantly shattered, and the super powerful shock fruit exploded. The scales on Xinglong's body in the center were shattered inch by inch. Xinglong let out a shrill scream, let go of Ye Huo's neck, and flew into the air, opening a distance of 10,000 meters. The next moment, Xinglong's body circled and opened its mouth. The energy between heaven and earth began to gather in Xinglong's mouth, and the red light began to condense. Xinglong wants to use his attack that can destroy a country, Dragon Breath. Chapter 114 Complete Defeat of Four Emperors Kaido. Xinglong's body circled in a circle. The huge head was raised high. A vast ocean-like energy surged out of his body. Gather and mouth. At the same time, countless energies from all directions gathered crazily. The space around Xinglong seemed to be shaking. Countless air waves were rolling, the sky and the earth were changing, and a terrifying momentum and pressure enveloped the world. Rayleigh, Bigmom and others looked up into the void. Their eyes burst with brilliant light. Is this the power of Four Emperors Kaido? It's really scary. However, the next moment, a force 10 times more powerful came from the other side of the sky. Purple-black scales appeared on the head of the sacred dragon. Eyes Rinnegan stared intently at Kaido. Copying Kaido's dragon breath. Suzuo's power keeps gathering, and the super hard armament hockey keeps gathering. The sacred dragon also opened its mouth. The energy is immeasurable as the sea and as vast as the starry sky gathered in the mouth. The breaths from all directions kept gathering towards the blazing fire. The prototype of dragon breath has already been formed. Ding. Congratulations to host for learning Holy Dragon Breath. Close black lens bracket. 1000 times reward is triggered. 1. A lot of sacred dragon breath. 2. Super powerful sacred dragon breath. Time was short, and Ye Huo didn't have much time to choose, so he said directly, I choose super powerful dragon breath. At that moment, the energy from all directions poured into the blazing fire. The wind howled, and the terrifying energy kept fluctuating, cutting the air with force and making a sharp whistling sound. The changes in the sky and the earth indicate the horror of this blow. Xinglong's pupils shrank suddenly, feeling the opponent's devastating blow. Xinglong took the lead in attacking. Dragon breath. A roar suddenly sounded, Xinglong's huge head suddenly pressed forward, and the light bullets in his mouth spit out instantly. The blazing fire, coerced by Qi Jin, shook the heaven and earth, and blasted towards the sacred dragon. Like a huge flaming meteor, it hit the sacred dragon. The sacred dragon lifted its wings into the sky and pressed forward violently. The fire in his mouth spit out instantly. A huge pillar of fire with a diameter of 10,000 meters, carrying a powerful air wave, made a deafening roar and hit Xinglong's breath hard. Xinglong's dragon breath was too weak, and it was completely defeated in just a moment. The sacred dragon's surprise attack was like an asteroid hitting the mainland, crashing into the green dragon. Xinglong didn't dare at all, and jumped away in an instant, but his speed was still not as fast as the dragon's breath, and he was slightly scratched by the dragon's breath. At that moment, the stomach dragon's scales melted instantly. The flesh ignited with golden flames. Xinglong roared, his body quickly shrank, turned into a human form, and fell into the sea. And the breath of the sacred dragon hit the sea in the distance. A huge puddle with a diameter of hundreds of thousands of meters suddenly formed on the sea surface. The fire exploded, sending light reaching into the sky. The whole world became 10 times brighter. This was followed by a huge roar. Then came the terrifying shockwave. Ghost King Island was shaken continuously by the impact. The strong wind swept across and blew away thousands of pirates. The rain fell in torrents. Wet all the pirates' clothes. All the pirates had frightened faces on their faces. If this is hit head on, even if I had 10,000 lives, I wouldn't be able to survive. As soon as they thought of this, waves nearly 100 meters high broke out on the sea. The waves crash against Ghost King Island. Fortunately, Rayleigh's ship is on the other side of Ghost King Island. The huge waves that hit here are much smaller, but they are still 40 or 50 meters high. The dragon boat was hit by big waves. It was fluttering and swaying, as if it would be smashed to pieces at any time. Fortunately, after a while, the big wave was gradually consumed by Ghost King Island and became smaller. Only then did the dragon boat escape the unexpected. But some boats were still photographed underwater. Many pirates are rescuing pirates who have fallen into the water. What a terrifying blow. Rayleigh was soaked all over. His eyes were full of shock, and of course excitement. Hahaha. Doflamingo said even more enthusiastically, what if such a blow hits Mariajoy? Hahaha. Well, Bigmom's eyes also showed excitement. I didn't expect that this kid has such terrifying power, that old Kaido. It's time to take refuge. Bigmom looked at the place where Kaido fell into the water. A sailor had already swam over and fished Kaido up. Kaido gradually regained his strength, slowly opened his eyes, and saw a strong man of the same era as himself. Bigmom, Rayleigh, why are you here? Well, Bigmom smiled, we have all joined Ye Huo's fleet. Kaido, if you lose, it's time for you to join Ye Huo's fleet and overthrow the world with us. Government, destroyed Mariajoy, the sacred place of the celestial dragons. Kaido's mouth twitched, what did you say? The two of them drank like this until late at night. Ye Huo's body was too small to hold so much wine, so he finally couldn't hold it in anymore and went to urinate first. Kaido won a round at the wine table and excitedly laughed. Kaido clapped his hands and shouted to his subordinates, bring the fruit we just got. Kaido glanced at the faces of Rayleigh, Bigmom, and Fujitora, and finally nodded, okay, I want to see how you overthrow the world government and attack Mariajoy, the holy land of celestial dragons. Gurgling, okay. Ye Huo was also very proud. Others used big bowls, but the two of them just picked up the barrels and drank. Ye Huo smiled a little drunkenly, of course I'm here for real. Ye Huo took a look at Kaido and saw that the scars on his body were not noticeable. At this time, Ye Huo restored his human form and used moonwalk to jump in front of Kaido. Ye Huo was overjoyed by Kaido's surrender and said loudly, we welcome Kaido, the king of beasts, to join us today. We will never stop drinking. Ye Huo also smiled, I love drinking the most in my life, and I have never lost. Come, let's compete today to see who is the better drinker. But in the end, you lose, Kaido, join my team. Bigmom looked into the air. In an instant, all the pirates shouted in unison that they would not return until they were drunk. Ye Huo nodded and said, as expected of you, you were rubbed by my dragon's breath and only suffered a little skin injury. Ha ha ha. Kaido burst out laughing suddenly and said to Ye Huo, my fruit ability is not as good as yours, but when it comes to drinking, Wangda, you are definitely not as good as me. Okay, bring the wine. Kaido and Ye Huo sat across from each other, grinning, you can't go to the toilet in the middle. When Ye Huo came back again, Kaido laughed at Ye Huo for a while, then laughed and said, boss, I heard that you can swallow a lot of devil fruit, is it true? Well, Kaido, I was just as surprised as you when I heard this at first, but now I believe that if it were him, he might be able to do it. Chapter 115. 10,000 times reward, the fruit of time stopping. Devil fruit. Ye Huo was stunned for a moment, then took the devil fruit. The fruit is purple in color and has tang grass-like texture on its surface. Ye Huo looked at Kaido and said in surprise, give it to me. Kaido grinned and nodded, brothers all want to see how much devil fruit you can swallow, boss. Brothers, isn't it? Kaido's men nodded. All eyes looked at Ye Huo. The eyes were full of curiosity and excitement. Devil fruit, that is a very special existence. Each person can only devour one. There was an attempt to devour two. As a result, they either died or became weird and no longer considered human at all. They were very curious as to why Ye Huo could swallow so many devil fruits. They just wanted to see how many devil fruits Ye Huo could swallow. And in the end, what will Ye Huo look like after swallowing so many devil fruits? Both pairs of eyes were as big as bells, looking extremely excited. Even Bigmom, Rayleigh, Fujitora, etc. also showed very curious eyes. They are also very curious about this. Ye Huo looked at the devil fruit in front of him. He looked at everyone again and smiled, okay, then I'll satisfy your 803 curiosity. After speaking, Ye Huo swallowed the devil fruit in one gulp. Still tastes like rubber. Ye Huo swallowed it directly without chewing it. Then Ye Huo felt that the devil fruit in his stomach turned into an energy, and the energy of other fruits in his body was separated by the dark fruit. At this time, dark fruit plays more of a role in balancing these fruits. So that the power of these fruits is not allowed to gather together and explode. At the same time, the system sound also sounded. Ding. Congratulations to host for getting the slowness fruit. 1,000 times reward is triggered. 1. 10,000 slow fruits. 2. A fruit where time stands still. After hearing the introduction of the system, Ye Huo's expression changed slightly. The expressions of Kaido and others on the side also changed slightly, and their eyes were fixed on Ye Huo. Could it be that after eating this fruit, the fruit in Ye Huo's body will finally explode together? What will happen to this man who is as powerful as a god? His body exploded to death in an instant, and his body's energy turned into fruits. Or become a non-human monster. Doflamingo stared at Ye Huo closely. We haven't even conquered the headquarters of the world government yet, and we haven't even invaded Mariajoy, the holy land of celestial dragons, so we won't just die like this, right? Everyone is staring at Ye Huo. At this time, Ye Huo was extremely shocked. Slow fruit. This fruit turned out to be a slow fruit. And after increasing by 10,000 times, it turned into a time-stopping fruit. This fruit is so powerful. It can be said that it is the most powerful fruit among all the fruits he obtained. At least in Ye Huo's view, this Chi fruit, oh no, it is the time-stopping fruit that has been increased 10,000 times, and it is definitely the most powerful fruit. Ye Huo gave up 10,000 slowness fruits without even thinking about it, and shouted in his heart, I want a time-standing fruit. At that moment, Ye Huo made a choice. Immediately afterwards, the strange energy changed again. Ye Huo couldn't describe this change, but it actually happened. Ye Huo really likes this fruit. So he kept sitting there, meditating on this fruit. During this time, Ye Huo also had a certain understanding of devil fruit. He needs to learn how to use this energy himself. Create your own abilities. Ye Huo mobilizes the ability of the time-stopping fruit. Put this power at your fingertips. The next moment, a circle of light appeared from Ye Huo's fingertips. As the energy of the fruit continues to be injected, a terrifying power fluctuation suddenly came out. Except for the strong pirates Rayleigh, Kaido, and Bigmom present, the rest of the weaker pirates all ran away in an instant. They knew that Ye Huo was powerful but could not be affected by the energy. That would be really deadly. Everyone stayed far away. Kaido, BCBF, and others looked at Ye Huo and the white light group in Ye Huo's hand. The white light group gradually expanded. In the blink of an eye, the radius reached 100 meters. At this moment, with Ye Huo as the center, the space and time with a radius of 100 meters no longer had any interest. The expressions of Bigmom, Rayleigh, Kaido and others were frozen. Just like a statue, there is no change at all. The pirates running outside. Their bodies maintain a forward-leaning motion. He also froze in place. With Ye Huo as the center, time stopped within a radius of 100 meters. The pirates around also noticed something strange here. Everyone looked at this place with strange eyes, wondering what happened. But a second later, the light dissipated in an instant, and everyone returned to normal. The noise continued. The sound of clinking wine glasses also came and went. At the same time, the system's voice sounded again. Ding. Congratulations to host, for awakening to the time-static realm. 1000 times reward is triggered. 1. Ultra-wide time still field. 2. Ultra-long-term stationary field. Ye Huo took a closer look at the pros and cons between the two. The advantage of the ultra-wide time still field is its wide range, with the field radius reaching more than 2,200 meters, but the disadvantage is also very obvious, that is, the maintenance time is only 1 second, which is too short. The advantage of the realm of supernormal time stillness is its long time, which can reach 10,000 seconds, which is 106 minutes and 2.78 hours. Now there is a problem before Ye Huo. Is it a matter of a wide range of choices or a long time? Ye Huo thought about it again, and finally made a decision. I choose the realm of supernormal time stillness. Ye Huo feels that the ultra-long-term stationary field is better. Anyway, as long as one's own domain is opened, all attacks can no longer come close to one's body. He is relatively safe. At this time, the effect of a wide range will be greatly weakened, and the advantage of a long time will be infinitely amplified. This means that there will be an insurmountable gap between the attacker and yourself. Who can travel through time that stands still? Ye Huo was really happy. He didn't expect that he would get such good results this time. Looks like I need to eat more devil fruit in the future. Ye Huo returned to normal and started drinking with Kaido again. After a few days of hangover, we set off again. 3 months later. Ye Huo traveled around the new world and finally found the red-haired Shanks and his gang on an island. Ye Huo held the broken sword and looked at Shanks and said, "Red hair, it's not easy to find you." The red-haired man felt helpless for a while. "I just avoided you on purpose, but I didn't expect that you would still find me. It seems that this battle between us is inevitable." After the words fell, the red-haired body suddenly burst into extremely powerful momentum. His momentum was not majestic, but extremely sharp, like an unsheathed peerless sword. Chapter 116 Four Emperors Shanks. An extremely powerful aura emanated from the red-haired body. Red-haired Shanks has a very strong presence. He is the only man who successfully became the Marine Four Emperors without Devil Fruit and became the top powerhouse in this maritime world. The power of Devil Fruit is recognized. The difference between having Devil Fruit and not having Devil Fruit is like a chasm. But Shanks just crossed this gap abruptly. His Conqueror's Haki and Armament Haki are extremely powerful. His swordsmanship is not at all under the eyes of an eagle. Shanks holds the sword Griffin in his right hand. He suddenly took a step forward, and the powerful Conqueror's Haki almost condensed into substance. The terrifying power spread out instantly, and cracks appeared on the ground. The ordinary pirates behind Ye Huo lost consciousness for a moment and fell to the ground. Kaido and Bigmom looked at the redhead with solemn expressions. As four emperors, they clearly know the power of red hair. Without the power of fruit, he can become a man on par with them. Such a man is truly strong. The red hair took another step forward, and the cracks on the ground became even more severe, and some powerful pirates also fainted. When the red hair took the third step, the extremely tyrannical Conqueror's Haki had cracked the ground with countless huge cracks up to 1 meter wide. Meanwhile, Armament Haki circles around the saber's griffin. The black light blooms with dazzling brilliance. The red-haired man's aura doubled. At that moment, there was a strong wind and a roaring sound. The powerful air wave centered on the red hair and spread in all directions. No one can stand within a radius of 1,000 meters. Even Doflamingo was forced back by this terrifying Haki. A thin layer of cold sweat appeared on Doflamingo's forehead. Hahaha, the four emperors are indeed monster-like existences. But even if it is a monster, it will never be a match for the boss. Ye Huo felt the red hair's powerful aura. He praised in his heart, four emperors are four emperors, and red hair is red hair. Even Bigmom and Kaido are not as powerful as Haki. At that moment, Ye Huo's whole body also burst out with powerful momentum. The super hard armament Haki condensed on the broken sword in his hand. The purple-black Haki suddenly erupted, with Ye Huo as the center, and its tyrannical energy swept across a radius of 2,000 meters. Between the red hair and Ye Huo, invisible energy collided fiercely. There was a loud blast. The purple-black Haki and the black Haki kept fighting. Explosions like thunder came one after another. The space between the two of them was already riddled with holes. The pirates around him were afraid of being affected, so they kept retreating towards the rear. Even the aftermath of a battle between emperors can kill them. Ye Huo felt sincere admiration in his heart and said, "Hongfa, you are really powerful. It's really admirable that you can cultivate to this level without devil fruit." The red-haired sword pointed at Ye Huo, and his voice became sharp and domineering. "It is precisely because there is no devil fruit that I can concentrate on Haki and swordsmanship and have the power of Kanaka. Ye Huo, your ability is very powerful. It is a blessing for me to be able to fight with you. Maybe I can use you to break through to the next level and train Haki to the level of Garp." What level is Garp? This thought flashed through Ye Huo's mind, but he threw it out of his mind the next moment. Now he was facing the red-haired man and couldn't be distracted at all. At that moment, the red-haired man took action. The redhead's feet were wrapped in black armament haki. The black light suddenly flourished. Ye Huo instantly turned on Rinnegan. He clearly saw the red-haired man bending his legs slightly, pressing down, and leaning forward. Then his legs exerted force suddenly, and he shot in front of Ye Huo in just an instant. The sword attached to armament haki struck Ye Mie hard. What a quick slash. Ye Huo also swung his sword and collided with the red-haired sword griffin. The purple-black haki and the black haki collide completely. The light shines across the island. The light formed by haki shoots out in all directions like ribbons. The wind roared, and the color of the sky and the earth changed. Click click click. There were loud explosions, and a terrifying impact swept around. With the two people as the center, the land with a radius of several kilometers exploded instantly. Countless pieces of earth and stone shattered. The earth collapsed, and a huge pit with a diameter of several thousand meters appeared. The strong wind swept away the flying sand and rocks. They tore off the vegetation and smashed holes into the pirate ships one after another. Please give me flowers. The pirates were either hiding behind a big tree, behind a mountain, or hiding directly inside the building without even daring to show themselves. Percent. Z% 1% at. The pirates were terrified. Is this 4 emperors level power? It's so F***king scary. I never want to participate in a battle related to 4 emperors again in my life. And this is nothing more than a tentative attack between the red-haired Ye Huo. After a test strike, the two quickly retreated. Then he stepped forward again, and at that moment the two of them fought hundreds of times. The two of them fought from one end of the island to the other. From earth to heaven, endless haki explodes. A strong gust of wind swept through. Black haki struck down like lightning. The mountain was penetrated, large holes were punched out of the earth, and huge puddles appeared one after another in the sea. This is Ye Huo's most intense battle since the battle. The next moment, Ye Huo's sword was pressed against the red hare's neck. The next moment, the red-haired body froze. At that moment, the two fought against each other again, and at the same time they separated again, standing thousands of meters apart. At that moment, two terrifying swords collided. The red-haired man was like a violent beast at this moment, roaring loudly, Ye Huo, this is my strongest blow. The two of them rushed towards each other again with their swords in hand. Ye Huo also slashed out a 1,000-meter purple-black sword. Finally, at that moment, the two swords exploded simultaneously. He wanted to use Red Hare's best swordsmanship to completely overwhelm him. Countless swords shot in all directions. The red-haired armament haki is only a little worse than Ye Huo's super-hard armament haki. The white light is centered on Ye Huo, and its diameter instantly spreads 100 meters. After the words fell, the red hare slashed out a kilometer-long black sword that cut through the air, and with an earth-shattering roar, slashed towards Ye Huo. The two swords were pressing against each other, neither superior nor inferior. Ye Huo clenched the sword tightly, armament haki fully exploded. Red Hare, this is also my strongest blow. At that moment, the red-haired man's aura surged again, and black haki was released all over him. Ye Huo doesn't want to use other abilities yet, he just wants to use swordsmanship to defeat the red hare. But at this moment, a white light appeared on Ye Huo's fingertips. Chapter 117. 10,000 times reward, Eternal Sky Swallowing Dragon. Red Hare, you lose. If you keep fighting, he will naturally win. But that would have too much impact. It would be bad if the aftermath killed the red-haired good brother. So Ye Huo used the power of the time standstill fruit. After saying that, Ye Huo dispelled the fruit's ability and moved the sword away from the red-haired shoulder. At that moment, the red hare also regained his mobility. The red-haired haki restrained himself, looked at the sky, and said sadly, sure enough, I lost in the end. Hearing this, Ye Huo comforted him and said, Hongfa, I can defeat you by relying on the power of the fruit, not the swordsmanship. You don't have to worry too much. The red-haired man smiled and said, if you lose, you lose. I won't give any reasons for my failure. After saying that, the red-haired man suddenly burst out laughing. He hooked Ye Huo's neck and said with a smile, I said you were a 313 kid. You defeated the 4 emperors at a young age. It seems that you deserve it. The Pirate King, ha ha ha. Such an action by the red hare immediately eased the tension between the two parties. The red-haired man said loudly, bring me some wine, I won't be drunk until today. Red hare pirates immediately brought in a lot of drinks. Ye Huo, Kaido, Hongfa, Rayleigh, Fujitora drank happily. Kaido suddenly said, Red Hare, do you have devil fruit? The red-haired man was stunned for a moment, then said, yes, what? Kaido smiled mysteriously and said to the red-haired man, aren't you curious about how many fruits this guy's body can hold? The red-haired man was a little confused after hearing this. Rayleigh said at this time, the leader now has 7 devil fruits in his body. On the way here, Ye Huo absorbed a few more devil fruits, but they had little effect, and Ye Mie didn't use them either. The red-haired man was startled when he heard this and said, 7 devil fruits. Kaido and others nodded repeatedly, and Kaido urged, do you have any? If so, give it to the boss. Let's see if he can explode and die after taking another one, or turn into something other than a human or a ghost. Quote. After hearing Kaido's words, Ye Huo was speechless for a while. But he doesn't care. Dark fruit can swallow 10,000 kinds of devil fruit. There are only 7 now, so it doesn't matter at all. The red-haired Shanks suddenly became interested and said immediately, Ben, go get the devil fruit we just got. Ben Beckman stood up and left, and returned a short time later with an extra box in his hand. Ben Beckman opened the box, which contained a fruit with a pattern like arabesque. The red-haired man took out the fruit, handed it to Ye Huo and said with a smile, Boss, do you dare to eat another one? For a moment, everyone looked at Ye Mie again. I don't know if Ye Huo will die after eating this pill. At the same time, this is Shanks testing Ye Huo. Look how brave Ye Huo is. However, they didn't know that this was not a test at all for Ye Huo. Ye Huo grabbed the devil fruit. Swallow it in one gulp. It tastes the same, and the same amount of energy flows into the body. The system sound sounded at the same time. Ding. Congratulations to the host for obtaining the dragon fruit, ancient species, and swallowing dragon form. 1000 times reward trigger. 1. 10,000 dragon fruits, ancient species, and swallow dragon form. 2. A dragon fruit ancient species the form of an eternal sky swallowing dragon. Ye Huo's expression changed slightly again. The redhead's eyes lit up. I couldn't help but ask, little boss, is there a conflict with devil fruit and you are going to die? Kaido and others also looked at Ye Huo. But the next moment, Ye Huo had a smile on his face. Ye Huo glanced at the red-haired man. Do you really want something to happen to me? What a pity. The red-haired man felt disappointed when he saw that Ye Huo was fine. The same goes for Kaido, who finds it very boring. The two picked up their wine glasses and began to drink. The corner of Ye Huo's mouth twitched. Sure enough, they are all pirates. Ruthless. Rayleigh on the side couldn't help but ask, what is the ability of the devil fruit this time? Ye Huo smiled and said, guess. Rayleigh. Rayleigh secretly cursed, I guess it's a hammer. Ye Huo and others stayed on the island for a short time. Set off again. Now one of the 4 emperors of New World died in his hands. The other 3 became his subordinates. He is now considered the uncrowned pirate king. At this moment, Ye Huo's power has alarmed the world government. At the same time, we also know that Ye Huo's purpose is to overthrow the world government and enter Mariajoy, the holy land of celestial dragons. The world government has begun recruiting troops all over the world to make up for the lost Marine and the vacant admiral position. Now Marine, Sengoku has stepped down from the position of marshal. Aokiji becomes Marine's new marshal. Kizaru is still a veteran, earning a high salary in admiral's position and doing nothing every day. The 5 elders also began to secretly prepare their forces to prepare for a decisive battle with Ye Huo. The world is talking about this impending war. The world government has banned it, but various reports and rumors are flying everywhere. Overthrow the world government. How is this possible? How can the world government be overthrown? Oh, this Ye Huo is really arrogant. He actually wants to invade Marineford and fight against the celestial dragons. He is dead. In the crowd, a man in a cloak suddenly raised his head, revealing the square red tattoo on his left face. The man murmured, what a disturbing guy, who has messed up the world so much. During the impel down, Magellan, who was doing toilet work, suddenly raised his head and looked to the south, which was the direction where Ye Huo was. After several months of sailing, Ye Huo and his party arrived at the destination of their trip, impel down. One warship after another did not get too close. Ye Huo took a deep breath, and the loud voice resounded throughout impel down, Magellan. At this moment, Ye Huo's dragon boat is in front, followed by the fleet of the 3 emperors, and behind it is an even larger fleet. They are also preparing for the upcoming war. Oh, what's the matter? In my opinion, Ye Huo will definitely die in this war, and he will only end up with the same fate as Roger. 4.8. Ye Huo used moonwalk and jumped to the sky above impel down. Hey, did you hear that? That former Marine Vice Admiral Ye Huo actually recaptured the New World's King of Beasts Kaido, Bigmom, and the red-haired Shanks, and is still gathering strength everywhere to overthrow the world government. That's not necessarily true. That Ye Huo can conquer the 4 emperors, something Roger couldn't do back then. Celestial Dragon's top brass held meeting after meeting. After suffering a loss, the pirates would hide as far away as possible. News outlets around the world were reporting on the news, which came from nowhere. Chapter 118. The Eternal Sky Swallowing Poisonous Dragon. Ye Huo's voice just fell. A roar suddenly sounded in impel down. Immediately afterwards, impel down the huge iron door turned deep purple. Boom. The door was knocked open. A dark purple dragon head suddenly flew up and crashed into Mie. Ye Huo clenched his right fist and a white light ball attached to it. The next moment, Ye Huo punched it. Countless cracks appeared in the space, spreading towards the poisonous dragon. The powerful shock directly shattered the poisonous dragon. It turned into a pool of venom and fell down. At the same time, a tall figure came out of impel down. It is none other than Magellan, the owner of the poison fruit. Magellan stared at Ye Huo in midair, narrowed his eyes slightly, and said coldly, "You traitor to Marine, what are you doing here?" Ye Huo looked at Magellan with a smile on his lips. "Magellan, Marine is rotten, and world government is just a machine used by celestial dragons to control the world. Celestial dragons regard all races as pigs and dogs, and will trample on the dignity of all races at will. Such a government, such celestial dragons, should not exist in these 12 worlds. So, I want to overthrow the world government and overthrow the rule of the celestial dragons. Magellan, you have great power and are well versed in criminal law. I need you to be my chief justice and help me re-establish a new world government. All races must be treated equally. Magellan, join my team and help me to complete this great feat of changing the dynasty." Magellan's frown deepened when he heard this. He slowly shook his head and said, "Ye Huo, you are poisoned, and you are poisoned by hopeless delusion. This poison is worse than my poisonous fruit. Poison. The world government is not something you can overthrow, and Tianlong is not something you can defeat. Ye Huo, I advise you to leave here quickly." 21. Ye Huo's lips curved proudly. "You can let me leave. As long as you come with me, I will leave immediately." Magellan narrowed his eyes and said slowly, "Ye Huo, I know you are powerful, I am not your opponent. But if you want to take me away by force, that's impossible. However, if you can withstand my venom, then I will go with you willingly." Ye Huo heard the words and immediately said, "Okay, it's settled in one word." Magellan narrowed his eyes even more. "Ye Huo, you have to think clearly, even if you have great power, if you are contaminated by my venom, you will definitely die." Ye Huo laughed loudly and said, "No need to talk nonsense, if you have any skills, just use them." Magellan stopped talking, his body melted like a candle, and countless venom emerged, condensing into 3 dark purple poisonous dragons. As soon as the poisonous dragon appeared, the poisonous gas spread, and even the ground was corroded into a huge pit. Can be extremely toxic. At that moment, Magellan controlled 3 poisonous dragons and pounced on Ye Mie in an instant. Almost at the same time, Ye Huo's figure suddenly changed. His head quickly grew in size and turned into a black dragon head. As the neck grows rapidly, the hands turn into dragon claws. The abdomen also lengthened, and the legs turned into hind paws. A long dragon tail grew out of the back of his butt. Ye Huo soared into the sky and turned into an eternal sky-swallowing dragon 2,000 meters long. The whole body of the eternal sky-swallowing dragon is covered with black scales. Smooth and bright, full of hardness. At the moment when the poisonous dragon rushed towards him, eternal sky-swallowing dragon suddenly opened its mouth wide. In an instant, an extremely powerful suction force came from the sky above and impelled down. The wind roared and the sand flew and rocks flew. The buildings on the ground were constantly swallowed by the eternal sky-swallowing dragon. The sea water on all sides also rolled up a waterspout and fell into the dragon's mouth. The pirate ship in the distance kept moving in the direction of Ye Huo. The pirates were so frightened that they immediately yelled, "Retract the sails, quickly, row far away, don't be sucked in. Pull quickly, paddle quickly. Boss, it's getting more and more terrifying. We are so far away and yet we are still affected. Next time we will be further away. Damn it, if you don't want to die, use your milk feeding power on me. The strong suction force will suck the 3 poisonous dragons into the mouth in an instant." Magellan struggled to stand firm, keeping his body from being sucked into the air. Magellan's eyes widened, and he was extremely shocked. He never expected it. Ye Huo actually swallowed his poisonous dragon. His poison dragon is extremely poisonous. Ye Huo actually swallowed it directly. Is he looking for death? The eternal sky-swallowing dragon claims to be able to swallow even the sky. Not to mention a mere poisonous dragon. It's simply not enough, or it can fill the gap between your teeth. Magellan stared at Ye Huo and wanted to see Ye Huo die of poison. However, Ye Huo didn't do anything at all. On the contrary, the suction force becomes more powerful. Magellan's dark purple poisonous dragon suddenly turned blood red. The toxins become more terrifying. However, they were all sucked into the mouth by Ye Huo. Magellan finally couldn't resist the powerful suction. With a cry of surprise, his body flew up and was directly swallowed by the eternal sky-swallowing dragon. The pirates in the distance were dumbfounded. What the hell? Actually swallowed it directly. That's a Magellan comparable to Admiral. No one knows what Ye Huo went through during those moments in his belly. Will the boss be poisoned to death? At this moment, Magellan looked in extremely bad condition. Ye Huo burst out laughing. "I will not die in anyone's hands, only others will die in my hands. Magellan, let me ask you, is Golden Lion still in Impel Down?" Magellan was slightly surprised, then nodded and said, "How did you know? That kind of venom is extremely poisonous, and it was swallowed by the boss just like that. Don't worry about it. Take me to see him. Many terrifying powerful men were once imprisoned here, but only Golden Lion was captured again." Ye Huo walked up to Magellan, looked at Magellan and said, "Does this mean I have endured your venom?" Ye Huo followed Magellan down one level at a time. The body of eternal sky-swallowing dragon gradually shrank. Magellan lay on the ground and said feebly, "Hey, I still underestimated you. Since you have swallowed my poisonous dragon, I will not break your promise. I will follow you. I also want to see what will happen to you. Whose hands will he die in the end?" All the pirates were shocked. The next moment, the eternal sky-swallowing dragon vomited violently, and Namai 927 Magellan was spit out directly and fell to the ground hard. Magellan didn't say much and took Ye Huo into the Impel Down undersea hell. In the blink of an eye, we arrived at the 6th floor of Impel Down. Finally, he transformed into a human form again. Although a group of mortals were released by Straw Hat here, after such a long time, many people were imprisoned here. Chapter 119 The Decisive Battle with Thor Enel. Deep in the 6th level. It's dark and deep here with no sunlight at all. Only observation hockey can see everything inside. There are a few people imprisoned sporadically in the cells. There are also cells with no living people inside. There were some white bones lying near the chain. Apparently imprisoned until death. In the silent cell, the footsteps of Ye Huo and Magellan kept ringing. At the end of the road, the clatter of chains sounded from the cell on the left. A man slowly raised his head. He has golden hair, like a lion's golden fur. His legs were broken and his hands were locked with sea stone. But even so, this pirate's eyes were not dull at all, they were still bright and bright. This man is the golden lion Shiki who once resounded across the sea. Shiki grinned and said slowly, "Magellan, did you bring someone to accompany me? Who could it be? Doflamingo, Jinbei, or who it is?" Listening to the footsteps, they don't look like anyone. Could it be a newcomer? Quote. A sword light flashed. Click. The chains were cut. Creak. The cell door opens. Magellan and Ye Huo walked in. Golden Lion Shiki observation hockey unfolded. He saw Ye Huo's face clearly, his expression changed slightly, and he couldn't help but said, "Marines Trader General, Ye Huo." Ye Huo looked at the Golden Lion and said, "I'm here to make a deal with you. I'll rescue you and you do something for me." Golden Lion was stunned when he heard this, and then looked at Magellan beside him. Seeing that Magellan had no reaction, he suddenly laughed out loud. "Magellan, have you betrayed Marine too?" Haha. Magellan had a sullen face and said nothing. Golden Lion laughed for a while and passed his hands in front of Ye Huo. "Doctor, please untie it for me." The sword in Ye Huo's palm slashed through it, and the sea stone was broken into 2 pieces. Golden Lion's eyes flashed, and he suddenly laughed and said, "Boy, wanting me to do things with you is just a dream. Now I am free again, ha ha ha." Powerful power suddenly erupted from Golden Lion's body, and the originally quiet dungeon stirred up gusts of wind. Golden Lion's body and legs were condensed by armament hockey, forming the tip of the sword. The Golden Lion's body suddenly began to turn over at a high speed. The lion cuts through the ages. Quote. At that moment, the sword tip shot out streaks of sword light and rushed towards Ye Huo. Yi didn't even move, his eyes turned into Rinnegan in an instant. The purple-black energy condensed into a purple-black Golden Lion's blow. Golden Lion was stunned, and then a huge purple-black bone fist hit Golden Lion's abdomen hard. Boom. There was a loud noise, and the Golden Lion was directly knocked out. He fell hard against the wall. Golden Lion looked at Ye Huo in horror. He never expected that Ye Huo was so strong. But it was still impossible to make him surrender. Golden Lion turned his palm over and shouted, "Lion Majesty Earth Coiling." Suddenly the ground began to roll. Walls from all directions rolled towards Ye Huo. In that moment, the walls of Impel Down collapsed. Sea water pours in from all directions. The corners of Golden Lion's lips curled up. His lion fruit can make sea water float up and away from his body. But Ye Huo and Magellan will definitely be soaked by sea water. Lose power. However, he didn't know that Ye Huo's Shuzuo was not a fruit ability at all. The next moment, Shu made a left move and grabbed the Golden Lion in his hand. Immediately after Ye Huo soared into the sky, the terrifying Shuzuo quickly increased in height, and his huge body directly broke through the undersea hell. The next moment, Ye Huo's body flew upwards towards Shuzuo and flew out from Shuzuo's forehead. Ye Huo attached armament hockey to his right hand and hit the Golden Lion's abdomen with 10 punches. Golden Lion was beaten until his eyes almost popped out. The body flew backwards and hit the ground hard. The body kept convulsing and spitting out acidic water. Ye Huo walked up to Golden Lion and said slowly, "I gave you these 2 punches because you broke your promise. If there is a next time, you will die." An exit with the word, "death," is filled with infinite murderous intent. Golden Lion trembled all over and said hurriedly, I don't dare anymore. From now on, I think I will listen to you, boss." Ye Huo then restrained his murderous intent and said calmly, "Let's go and meet your new companion." With that said, Ye Huo took Magellan and Golden Lion to meet Rayleigh and others. This shocked the 2 of them beyond measure. In the following time, Ye Huo asked Rayleigh and others to stay here at Impel Down to educate the prisoners here and let them reform and become Ye Huo's people. At the same time, Ye Huo let the Golden Lion use its lion fruit to fly to Sky Island. Ye Huo had only one purpose in saving Golden Lion. That's Enel. The thunder fruit owned by Enel is definitely one of the most domineering fruits. If he can get this fruit, his strength can be further improved. Golden Lion knows the maritime world very well, so it was much faster for him to help find Enel than for Ye Huo to find it on his own. Golden Lion let Ye Huo out. Of course it's not me, it's my boss, he wants your thunder fruit. At this time, Enel looked at the two of them with surprised eyes. When he saw the Golden Lion, his eyes shrank slightly. It's you. Quote. There are hundreds of islands in this area, shimmering with light and steaming clouds. About a month later, Ye Huo and Golden Lion found Sky Island. At that moment, Ye Huo tightened his grip on the sword, and two swords suddenly appeared. After searching the island for a while, Ye Huo finally saw the target of his trip. There is a thunder drum behind him and a golden stick in his hand. After the words fell, Enel struck the taiko drum on his right shoulder, and thunder and lightning flashed, transforming into two phoenix-shaped thunderbirds, flying towards Ye Huo and Golden Lion. Sitting on a stone in front of him was a man. Enel stood up slowly and said, "Your arrival has polluted this land. Only with your blood can we wash away Li. Sitting on the island, you can watch the rolling clouds and waves." The man wore a white headscarf, his upper body was bare, his lower body was in bloomers, his feet were bare, and there were rings on his toes. Enel cast his gaze on Ye Huo with disdain in his eyes. Ye Huo recognized him at a glance. This was Enel. Enel was stunned for a moment, then burst into laughter. Yeah, ha ha ha, Golden Lion, is it just you? Ha ha ha. It took another 2 months of searching. Golden Lion twitched the corner of his mouth and laughed. Enel, today is the day you die. Ye Huo and Golden Lion finally found an island above Sky Island. Chapter 126 Paths Super Powerful Armed Holy Dragon vs Thor. The two purple-black swords are both thousands of meters long. The terrifying sword gang carried Hoki's power and cut through the air, making a harsh and sharp whistle. At that moment, he slashed at the two Thunderbirds. Without any surprise, the two Thunderbirds were split into two by Jian Gang. The Thunderbird exploded, scattering thunder arcs all over the sky, piercing the air, and emitting a sharp whistle, like the cry of 1,000 birds. Enel's face changed slightly when he saw Ye Huo smashing his powerful Thunderbird so easily. At that moment, Enel jumped back and distanced himself from Ye Huo. Ye Huo raised his head and stared at Enel and said slowly, "Enel, I will decide your fruit. If you die obediently, you may suffer less." Huh, what an arrogant brat. Enel snorted coldly, and extremely powerful energy suddenly erupted in his body. Lightning arcs emerged from Enel's body. At this moment, Enel seemed to be the incarnation of thunder and lightning. The lightning shines brightly and dazzlingly. Lightning arcs penetrated the air, and there was a constant crackling sound of firecrackers exploding. At that moment, Enel struck Taiku on both shoulders at the same time. The terrifying power of thunder and lightning instantly appeared from that ancient time. 263. The thunder light gathered together and turned into a huge dragon that grew to about 700 meters. Thunder and lightning have been continuously output since ancient times. The Brontosaurus body continues to improve. Pieces of thunder armor completely condensed by thunder and lightning, almost condensed into substance. The golden stick in Enel's hand pointed towards Ye Huo. The thunder dragon circled for a while, its head held high, and it made a dragon roar that shook the earth. At that moment, the thunder dragon rose into the air and pounced on Ye Huo. Almost at the same time, Ye Huo's eyes suddenly turned into Rinnegan, and purple-black energy suddenly erupted like a tide. The endless purple-black energy condenses into a huge purple-black skeleton giant that is thousands of meters high. As soon as the skeleton giant appeared, it set off a strong wind. Sky Island is swaying in the strong wind. Powerful energy is still being poured into the giant skeleton. The skeleton giant sprouted flesh and blood, layers of purple and black armor emerged, and a 700-meter-long sharp blade emerged from each of its two right palms. At that moment, 4 arms held 2 sharp blades and raised them high. The super hard armament Haki is attached to the sharp blade again. The terrifying purple-black energy swept around the left center, BCCJ, in an instant. The island beneath his feet shattered almost instantly. At the same time, Shuzuo's 2 terrifying swords slashed out at the same time. In an instant, 2 huge swords with a length of 10,000 meters struck the Thunder Dragon's body. At that moment, the Thunder Dragon's body instantly collapsed. It exploded into countless thunder lights and made a huge roar. The 2 swords were crisscrossed and slashed towards Enel. Enel's expression changed drastically. The lightning around him was strong, turning into a bolt of lightning to dodge this terrifying blow. However, the island behind him could not move, and was hit by 2 swords. Click, click, 2 loud bangs. This huge sky island was cut into 4 pieces by the huge sword. Rumble. The huge sky islands begin to separate from each other. Sky Island trembled violently, and countless birds flew up, making chaotic calls. Enel flew into the air, looking at the destroyed island below with an extremely ugly expression. Damn, damn, damn. Enel looked up to the sky and roared, and the taiku on his body rumbled, like a drum beating in the sky. His body began to grow taller and larger. Countless lightnings were suddenly released. Countless thunder and lightning surrounded his body. His hair exploded instantly. Rays of lightning as thick as an arm kept shining, exploding the air and making a loud cracking sound like a landslide. At that moment, Enel completed his thunder form. The sky and earth changed color. Strong winds blew, dark clouds gathered, and the sky and earth became dark. Suddenly, there was a flash of thunder in the clouds. Rumble. The thunder was rolling, and terrifying and powerful power came from it. Golden Lion felt the terrifying power and his face changed with fright. Little boss, I'm no match for you. I'll stay away first. The Golden Lion was so frightened that he ran away in panic. Ye Huo stared slightly, and the energy of the sacred dragon fruit in his body poured into his body. Ye Huo's head turned into a dragon's head, his neck grew, his arms turned into dragon wings, his feet turned into dragon claws, and his long tail maintained the balance of his body. At that moment, Ye Huo turned into a sacred dragon that reached more than 2,000 meters. At the same time, Susanoo formed a purple-black armor, firmly wrapping the body of the sacred dragon. Super hard armament haki also wraps around the dragon's claws. The claws of the sacred dragon release shocking purple and black energy. This energy is in the shape of a line, constantly fluctuating, and making an extremely crisp sound. At the same time, the white light of the Japanese group appeared in the dragon's certificate. That is the power of the super fruit. Facing the thunder god Enel, Ye Huo exerted power that he had never shown before, such as Zuo, super power shock fruit, and super hard armament haki. At this moment, the sacred dragon completely exploded at one point, the dragon claw. Enel, suffer death. The sacred dragon let out a loud roar in the air, and terrifying energy fluctuations instantly concentrated on the dragon's claws. Enel let out an earth-shaking roar, Thor. Thunderclouds in the sky rained down countless thunderbolts in an instant, hitting Enel's body one after another. At that moment, Enel's body became 1,000 meters in size, and blazing white light illuminated the heaven and earth, like a thunder sun. At that moment, Ye Huo's claw of destruction filled with infinite power collided with Enel's thunder god. At a certain moment, the sky was completely enveloped in white light and purple-black light. Enel's eyes stiffened for a moment. The terrifying impact instantly shattered nearby islands, and countless birds were instantly dismembered by this terrifying energy. With a loud bang, the body of Thor Enel exploded. The terrifying explosion and the huge explosion almost shattered people's eardrums. 1,000 times reward is triggered. The power of super hard armament haki, shock fruit, Rinnegan, and holy dragon exploded in Enel's chest in an instant. Strange energy began to gather and turned into a fruit with an Arabic pattern, which was the thunder fruit. The powerful dragon claws grabbed Thor and penetrated Enel's body. He lowered his head slightly and looked at his chest, his eyes full of disbelief. How is it possible? But he was still hit by the aftermath of the air wave. Ye Huo grabbed it in his hand and swallowed a mouthful. His body kept turning over and screaming. At the center of the explosion, the body of the sacred dragon was intact. Ding! Congratulations to host for getting thunder fruit. The golden lion fled quickly. The next moment, cracks appeared on his body, and purple-black light emerged from the cracks. The light magnified infinitely, covering the sun's rays and filling the eyes of all living creatures. A huge roar came rolling in.